Hello, everyone, and welcome to a very special bonus episode of The Pod and the Pendulum. While we usually dive into the horror movies of yesteryear, this week we are looking back at what has been a phenomenal year for genre films with our top 10 horror films of 2022. I am not your host, Mike Snoonian. Mike is under the weather today and has asked me, Jessica Scott, to take over hosting duties for this episode. But Mike is here, and he is once again joined by some of our fantastic regular co-hosts. I'm very excited to hear their lists. I know there's going to be some overlap, but I can't wait to hear where we each differ because it's going to give me a slew of great titles to jump into. Up first, I will introduce myself using Mike's handy script. You've read my words on Slash Film, Dread Central, and my personal film review site, We Who Walk Here. You've admired my cosplay creations, and thousands of you have sent me anonymous messages via the Not Gonna Lie app, some of which are pretty questionable in taste. Again, these are Mike's words, but he's not wrong. Once again, say hello to me, Jessica Scott. Also joining us today, fresh off her appearance on our Phantasm episode, you've read her work in Rue Morgue, Dread Central, and Daily Grindhouse, and you've also heard her on the Losers Club podcast. Welcome back, Rachel Reeves.
Hey, Mike. I mean, Jessica.
How you doing?
I'm good. I'm so excited to be here to just dig into everybody's faves because there's so much this year. So I'm excited to see what everybody picked.
Absolutely. Also joining us today, he is the co-host of the Movies for Life podcast, and he's made his writing home at sites like Bloody Disgusting and Manor Vellum, among others. Hello again, Brian Kuiper.
Hi, nice to be back. Nice to talk to everybody. Looking forward to seeing what we all got. I got excited about this year, you know?
Finally, he is the regular host of The Pod and the Pendulum who is trying his best to save his voice today. Hello to Mike Snoonian.
Hello. This feels weird. Not gonna lie.
Very.
Feels so weird, but thank you so much for stepping to the plate, Jessica.
Yeah, absolutely. I hope I don't scare people off too much. Stick around.
I think we're going to add viewers. Are you kidding me? I already know the reviewer that dinged us the star for someone sounds like they need a drink is hating everything about my voice right now. So tough shit.
Yeah.
I can say.
Go easy on him. He's sick right now. Yep. All right. Before we get into the list, any thoughts on what sort of year it's been for horror overall?
Man, this year is just stacked. It's astounding. I know that, there's always a lot of releases, but it really feels like this year, a lot of things that were held back for one reason or another, or were delayed for one reason or another, just all finally got released. And it's just this wave of incredible streaming content, theatrical releases, television, just so much horror stuff. It's really been astounding. Cannot keep up. Could not keep up. I don't know about you guys, but
no, and it's so much diversity. It's not just it's been a great year for slashers. It's been, found footage, small indie movies, big tentpole franchise movies. It's been everything. I'm with you. I can't keep up with everything. There's, stop motion animation horror. There's so much out there that I still need to catch up on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say the diversity of this year. I mean, who knows what is going to be remembered, 10 years, 20 years down the line, but that's always the case, right? But there's just so much good stuff for kind of everybody, if you're into, so many. It just was a realization of, there's so many subgenres, so many different types of horror out there. And some of these, I took a pretty broad, in my list personally, I took a pretty broad sort of definition of horror, I feel. And, some of these, some people might say, well, that's not really horror, is it? Well, I don't know. Maybe not. It's up to you to decide, I guess.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I thought it was odd you put Avatar 2.
I know. Yeah, that was a...
It's been an awesome year for horror. Probably the best one since 2017. In a lot of different ways. Like you've all said, I think the proliferation of streaming services has allowed for some incredible titles to get a much wider audience, not just from Shudder, but we saw Hulu step up in a really big way this year in terms of offering a new Hellraiser and Fresh and Prey, so many good original titles. Shudder obviously being one of the stalwarts in terms of it seems whenever there's a movie on the festival circuit. I'm like, oh, I can't wait for Shudder to pick that up and I get to see it. And hopefully it stays like that. But also, it felt like a year that like horror gained a lot of respectability, and that people realize, or the industry realize, like, hey, aside from superhero movies, the only genre that's consistently profitable is horror movies. So why don't we actually release more of them and make more of them?
It's so
And
funny that I feel like that happens like every, like, I don't know how often. I don't know how you guys feel about it. It's like every 5 years or something. It's like that
Yep.
happens. And then the industry's
Yeah.
like, oh, dang. Or like, making triple its budget. Weird.
Well, I think in part what it is like so many other genres. Like, when's the last time we've had a tentpole comedy in a theater? Like, so many other genres have kind of suffered in not in horror audiences will turn out. Like, if you give them something worth seeing, will turn out to the theater. And it's allowed for like a lot of like really big swings this year. It wasn't just a lot of the tired same old. So I am excited. I'm going to pause now and save my voice because I'm excited to hear these lists.
Okay, so we do have a lot to get through tonight, and it's a top 10 list, which is self-explanatory. The one thing we're going to do, there will be a lot of overlap on these lists, so if there's an entry that we have that's further up on someone else's list, we're not going to talk about it for too long so that we can discuss it when it gets up to that upper spot. And without going into any detail, do we want to list some honorable mentions that didn't quite make the cut?
I think so.
Yes.
Yeah. There was some that I do have some that are on your guys' list. So I don't want this to sound like these are only my honorable mentions, but I just knew that we were going to talk about some that I really liked. So I'll save those. But A Wounded Fawn for me, which just got released and is on Shudder, is super fun. Sorry, not talking about them in detail. Smile. I know we have mixed feelings on that, but I had a lot of fun with that in the theater. And let's see, Sissy, and Fresh for me. And I'll save the rest.
Okay. I'll go ahead. Piggy was a big one. Slashback. The Munsters. I am a big Munsters apologist, and I'm going on the record with that. Also, Prey. I know it's on some of y'all's list. It didn't make mine, but I do want to say that I love it.
Yeah, I got to shout out Pearl and X. I loved both of those. Yeah, they're not on my list, but I knew part of that reason is because I knew they'd be on someone else's, just being real. Nope, Wounded Fawn as well. I also wanted to mention Something in the Dirt, the Moorhead Benson film. It's not, it's more science fiction than horror to me, so that's why I didn't include it. But it would have been probably near the top if it had been, just maybe a touch more horror than science fiction. Great movie. I also had fun with Glorious, the one about the elder god in the glory hole. Yeah. So anyway,
yeah, I'm gonna say for me, A Wounded Fawn is definitely on the honorable mention list. Something in the Dirt as well. Like you said, it's more science fiction, more of a conspiracy theory movie. Yeah. It really makes me wish I did shrooms. I would love to get I don't, and I really think maybe I should do that and rewatch it. Mickey Keating's Off Season just barely missed the cut. I really love that movie. Black Phone, Pearl just missed my cut as well. Other years like those would all be like top 10 movies for me. It just really speaks to how great of a year that it has been for the genre overall. And then finally, Who Invited Them? It's a horror comedy. It's I watched that the same night as one of my movies on my list, and it's like the comedic version of this movie on Shudder. I would highly recommend it. So, yep, that's where we're at.
All right. It is time to get to the lists. Without further ado, let's start with each of our 10th ranked genre pictures of the year. I will go ahead and start. Hypochondriac. I have not seen a whole lot of people talking about this one, but I absolutely loved it. It is about, I'm trying to think of a good way to describe it. A guy who keeps going to the doctor for help. He has a mentally ill mother that he has a lot of trauma with. And he keeps hearing, oh, it's anxiety. Oh, you just need to get some rest. And it turns out it is not anxiety. It's about, getting mental health assistance. It's about being a queer person trying to navigate family trauma and mental health. It's scary and hilarious and really heartfelt, and
Yeah.
the guys involved are just fantastic. I'm a
Yep.
huge fan of this one, so I really recommend Hypochondriac.
It's a great pick. It has one of the best depictions of like calming down from a panic attack
Mm-hmm.
that I've seen on film as well. Like it's a lot of movies are doing like mental health and horror, like they're making the
Yeah.
connection, and I think this one does it in a way that is very respectful of mental illness, where others
Yeah.
smile, others are not so much.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Like I interviewed Zach Villa and Addison Hyman, the director of this, when it played. I can't remember what festival, but I I was like crying in the interview because like they're just, the people behind it are so great. The film is so great. Just hearing them talk about the passion about this film, and just, I don't know. This movie's incredible. This is an honorable mention for me because I just love everything about this and the way it handled all sorts of thing and presents some big issues in ways that I haven't seen and handled in ways that I haven't seen before. So
Yeah.
big shout out to this film.
And I've got to be honest, this is actually the first I've heard of this movie. So I don't know how I missed it. It fell through the cracks for me, but definitely gonna have to check that out.
See,
I
I love
just think
hearing
that-
that.
Yeah.
It just speaks to like what a great year it's been. Like there's so many movies that you're going to be like, don't know what that is. I'm really excited to hear some of these.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Rachel, how about you?
All right. So while Hypochondriac is, a little indie film that's really sensitive, I'm going with Halloween Ends. On the very other end of the spectrum. Mike
Fired.
is like kicking me off the pod. But you guys, I just had so much fun with this, and it was wild, and I know it's stupid, and I'm not saying it's like the best film ever made, loopholes and weird, threads that don't necessarily make sense, but I loved it, and I loved the aftermath of it. Like, I'm gonna say, like, just the shit show that was people talking about this. Like, I love this. I hate it. You're like, I don't know. It was just really, it was an event movie for me. And I enjoyed it. And so I'm going to look fondly back on this, and we'll just bask in my Halloween Ends defender status. So there's that.
Well, both my co-host and I, we talked about this one on our show on Movies for Life, and it was sort of a bonus episode. We just said, let's just talk about this. It'll be fun. And we had a great time. We actually both like it. She likes it like way more than me. So Michelle, my co-host. But I had a good time with it. I'll admit. My son hated it. Could not stand it. It was like,
you're raising a good kid, Brian.
Is the where's Michael situation. So it was just kind of fun for us to have that disagree, because my son I love seeing him sort of developing his own opinions too. But I liked this movie. I liked that it took some big crazy swings. And for a lot of people, those swings did not land at all. But I thought I had a good time with it. I'm actually looking forward to watching it again. So
I also think it's one of those things where, like, you go in. I hate when I go into a movie and I have like the hype is so big that when I go in, I'm like, oh, it was good. But like the hype had me thinking it was something else. This, I went in after Halloween Kills with zero expectations. And so I definitely think that helped.
Don't love this movie, but it is probably my favorite movie to talk about this year, because it's a fascinating conversation. So any movie that can inspire this much kind of like discourse has some merit to it.
Yeah.
And I'll say, if you started the trilogy with the opening scene of this movie, I think you have a much stronger trilogy if you weave Corey in and out of it.
Agreed.
And kill Michael at the end of Halloween Kills. You have a much, much stronger trilogy.
True.
All right.
the fan edit.
Yeah, let's get Topher Grace on this.
All right. Brian, what's your pick?
Okay, so mine, this was sort of a big studio release too, but it really slipped through the cracks, was Studio 666, starring the Foo Fighters, which is, I don't know, it's not a great movie. I'll admit to that, but I had so much fun with this thing. They move into this house to record, the Foo Fighters move into this house to record an album. Dave Grohl gets possessed by a demon and becomes both obsessed with finishing this album and also killing and eating people. I just found it to be wildly entertaining and funny and silly, and I just had a great time with it. It's actually, if my son was making his 10 list, this would probably be his favorite. Because
I take back what I said.
yeah, it has a lot of sort of Evil Dead 2 kinds of Sam Raimi qualities to it, and I had a good time with it. So
I saw this one for the first time last night, actually. I was watching it for a different project. I was writing about Jenna Ortega and her year in horror, and she's, in this one, obviously.
Sure.
And I went in expecting nothing, and I was so pleasantly surprised. Like, some of my favorite kills of the year are in this movie. It's so funny. I mean, it really does rest on how charismatic and affable Dave Grohl is, but he's just so likable to me that I'm down for it. And I had so much fun with this movie.
Well, I'll admit something. I am not a Foo Fighters fan. I'm not even sure I've heard a Foo Fighters song. I know everyone looks at me. It's like, you've never heard Everlong?
You have.
I don't know. Yeah. I'm not even sure if I have.
You're from the Pacific Northwest,
I
Brian.
know.
You've heard of Foo Fighters.
know. Okay. But it's just like, it's just not, they're just not something I've listened to. I'm sure I probably actually like them, but I still just had a great time with it. I thought it was, and like you said, some of the kills in this movie are just insane, batshit, hilarious, and gory as hell too. So
this is the best movie starring the Foo Fighters ever.
Okay. That's a very narrow
high praise.
subgenre.
I thought it was fine. I watched it for another podcast earlier this year, and it was fine. Yeah, it's super fun. I had low expectations, and it is pretty crazy. I don't know. Dave Grohl is one of those people that you're just like, you have no right to be this talented in this many arenas. Like, as a musician, actor, writer, like, just, looks. I mean, he's a good looking guy, and like, I don't know, seems like a smart, and he also seems like a genuinely nice guy. So I don't know. I can't hate it. So
Mike?
That's it.
I don't have much more to say about it, to be honest.
So my number 10 pick is Resurrection, starring Rebecca Hall and Tim Roth. And this movie floored me. Rebecca Hall is just amazing. Like, in all honesty, between this and The Night House, like, where horror needs to get more due, I think, is when it comes to awards. Because if she should be I mean, like, I know people talked about Toni Collette for Hereditary a few years ago, but my God, she is a tour de force in this movie. It does a really good job of setting up this, like, really strong, well put together woman who has everything going for her, and she runs into an old abusive partner, and everything falls apart in spectacular fashion. And it's weird. Like, the way he holds power over her is so weird and off-putting, and I don't want to spoil it. It's on Shudder. You're going to hear that phrase a lot this week, this show. But and everyone looks at her and is like, why are you, like, he gaslights her over and over, but she can't really break this spell. And you're hoping for this really empowering moment at the end of the movie where, like, it's going to resolve itself and things are going to move on. And it kind of does that, except it really doesn't. And it just leaves you with this awful feeling in the pit of your stomach. I watched this, Men, and Soft and Quiet on the same weekend. So,
oh my God.
I will just say this is what a feminist looks like. But yeah, Resurrection is like Rebecca Hall in this movie. Like, she does this kind of like soliloquy at one point to like her intern, where she talks about the worst thing she's ever done, and it's like super gut wrenching and terrifying and awkward, and she deserves all the flowers for it. Like, God love her.
Yeah, this is another one I caught really recently, and I'm actually crying right now just thinking about that monologue, because this was a movie that hit me really hard. There are certain subjects that hit really close to home for me, and I kind of have to, like, it took me several hours to watch it because I was like pausing to catch my breath, and then I'd come back to it, then I'd pause again because it was just too much. But that monologue in particular, if that is not sent to every Oscar voter, then I don't even know what we're doing here. But yeah, it seems like it would be really over the top, but it's not. Like, there's so much emotional truth in this. There's so much, like, I don't want to diminish anyone else's experience. There's so much literal truth in this, but like everything felt so authentic, and it's so visceral. Even when she's not being physical, you can feel it in her body. All this pain and abuse that she has carried with her for decades. And it's such a good performance. And it's one of those movies that even if you didn't live that experience, if you know that story, you feel it, if that makes sense. So I'm getting emotional again, so I'm going to let somebody else talk.
This is one like I haven't seen yet, and it's for these reasons. Like, I'm like, oh, Rebecca Hall's in it, and I like read just a snippet of the like the synopsis of it, and I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can. I don't know if I'm up for that tonight, and I just haven't gotten around to it because there's just some movies, and there's several actually that have come out this year that I've just like read about, and I just like I don't know if I'm in the headspace to watch these, but I'm I'll get around to it eventually because I think she's amazing.
And I'll just say Tim Roth is so wonderfully greasy.
Yes.
That's the only word I can really describe him with in this movie. Like, he's just oily. He's a snake. He's a snake oil salesman. He is really chewing some scenery here, but in a subdued way, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, what is it with great monologues this year? I mean, between this and Pearl, and basically they're just held on these actors, for so long, and they just say it to the camera, and obviously they're saying it to another character but in both cases. But yeah, that's I just watched this for the first time, and probably only time, because it's a tough movie. It's a tough movie and there's a lot I'm sort of processing about it. If I had maybe watched a little bit earlier, it might have ended up on this list, to be honest, because there's so much of it that takes digestion, I think. It's such a powerful film, though. Really great choice.
Yeah, well, that does it for our number 10 choices. So moving along, number 9, I'm just going to keep going in order, so I'll go first. My number 9 choice is Orphan First Kill. I tried to put some fun kind of bonkers movies on here along with the elevated horror. So Orphan First Kill, I avoided Orphan, as I talked about on the Orphan episode of this show, for a while because I got spoiled on it, but I thought, you know what, I'm going to catch up with it in time for the sequel. And I'm so glad I did, because this one, I'm not going to spoil it for anybody, but it was such a huge surprise and such a worthy successor to the original. And just the in-camera ways they trick your eye to make Esther look like she's still a small girl is just, I'm obsessed with. It's so simple, but I'm obsessed with the movie magic of it. And it's one of the most fun movies I've seen this year. So Orphan First Kill is my number 9.
Oh yeah. This movie's wild. This would be an honorable mention for me too. It's just, I don't know. It's just so ballsy, and I loved it, and I didn't see it coming. Mm-hmm. If you know, you know. But I just, yes, amazing. Yeah. Just so good and so funny and unexpected.
Yes.
Yeah.
To be
definite
honest.
Honorable mention for me. This one's a blast.
I have not yet seen either Orphan films. So, yeah, I know. And I haven't, I usually listen to every episode of this show, but I haven't listened to those because I don't want to be spoiled.
Don't listen to those shows first.
I want to watch those because part of it is because Rachel said, Brian, you got to watch them.
You have to.
Yes.
Have you not been spoiled on the original?
No.
Watch it after
You,
we finish recording.
I was like, I am like so scared that something's gonna happen to you in the next like 2 days until
Me
you watch
too.
this.
Me
Like,
too. You are a unicorn in the
how
wild.
about this? How about this? I'll watch it tomorrow.
Yes.
Excellent.
At least-
I'm out. I'm out for 2 weeks now. My school is over. So for
Okay,
2
at
weeks,
least the first one.
Yeah.
You have to watch the first one. And
Will
then,
do. Will
yes.
Oh man, I'm so excited for you. I can't wait.
Yeah, you're in for a treat.
Excellent. That's, again, my co-host Michelle keeps saying the same thing. You got to see that movie, Brian. So take everybody up on that.
Yeah.
All right, Rachel.
Okay. So my number 9 is Crimes of the Future. I know that this could be, is it horror? Is it not? I'm going to say yes. I think when Cronenberg's involved, I think it counts as horror. This was just so weird and I loved it. The breakfast chair, like, I don't know how many times I've like talked about that in random conversations with people who don't know what I'm talking about, and that's fine. There's a lot to unpack there, but I just thought so much of it was just weird and out there and gross. And I had a blast seeing this in the theater and saw it with it's one of the rare films because my husband's not really into horror that much. If it's the right thing, he is. But he also really enjoyed this. And I mean, Cronenberg, just what an icon, I just love the way his weird little mind works.
Yeah, this is actually in my honorable mentions as well, just off the list. But what a weird movie. How visionary. And I think it's one of those movies where so often, people see Cronenberg for the first time and go, ew, but then they'll come back to it later at some point and say, wow, that's pretty brilliant. So I'm hoping that this one is one of those. I think it's got a lot that sort of links it back to, sort of the Videodrome and Existenz days. And I think Viggo Mortensen is exceptional in this movie. And I don't understand it. Whatever the hell's going on in it, you just kind of got to let it soak in, and yeah. I mean, that's one of my problems, I think, with Cronenberg and David Lynch. I spend so much time trying to figure out what they're trying to say. What is this about? What puzzle am I supposed to solve? And it's like, you're not supposed to solve a puzzle. You're supposed to just react. You're supposed to feel what you feel based on the images and acting choices and the kinds of things that are coming from the screen and from the sound. And really interesting stuff. I bought this. I'm gonna revisit this one for sure. So
yeah, I keep meaning to watch it and have not gotten into it yet. So this will probably be over my winter break. I'll catch up. I feel Cronenberg gets a pass no matter what he does in terms of like horror. Like he's kind of grandfathered in at this point. If he has a movie coming out, we'll call it a genre picture.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah.
I'm in the same boat. I still need to see this one. It's on my stack of for your consideration screeners, and I wanted to see it when it came out, and I just didn't have the time. And I know, bad genre fan, but
well, it was a limited release. I felt lucky to be able to see it in a theater. I had to drive 45 minutes to see it.
Was it limited?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't. I guess I didn't realize that. I'm glad I caught it then.
Yeah, I mean, this and Pig I saw last year. I saw at the same theater, about 45 minutes from my house because the only place it was playing. So I guess mine movie's next. Yeah. And it is higher on another list, so I'm just going to mention it right now and we'll talk about it when it comes up later. And that is Terrifier 2.
All right.
Excellent.
Shocked the hell out of me that I liked.
Do you want to hold off on talking about it a little bit?
I'll just say that it absolutely shocked me that I ended up liking it because I hated Terrifier. I hated even more All Hallows Eve. So, so I was shocked that I liked this movie.
Third time with the charm when it comes to art.
Yeah. But we can go. I can go into it more when it comes
Yeah.
up on the other list up further.
Sure. So my number 9 movie is The Sadness from Rob Jabaz. I hope I'm saying that right. Jabaz. Rob Jabaz. This played the festival circuit last year. I got to intro it at Telluride Horror, and then catch it again as the closing movie. It is like just this bug nuts, super over the top, super gory pandemic movie. It's about a virus where if you're infected, you kind of become like the rage zombies from 28 Days Later, except you're aware of what you're doing. Hence the title, because they actually cry when they are committing these like insane acts of violence. It's all practical effects. It got some amazing gore in it. I'm usually not a gore hound, but this is so good. I just find myself like giddily cheering for this one. There is like skull fucking in this movie, if that is your thing. And for some people it is. We don't kink shame here. It has one of my favorite jump scares where like a body comes crashing down out of nowhere and like smashes into like a car or the pavement. And again, it's another downer ending. It is another downer ending where you don't really see what happens, but you hear it, and you're like, "Oh, that's very sad." If you're a fan of Dawn of the Dead, either Romero's original or Zack Snyder's, I think you will like this one a lot. I really, really enjoyed it. I actually want to watch it again before the year lets out, because it's been a little while since I've seen it, and it is also streaming on Shudder.
Yeah, a lot of critics thought this was like an empty exercise in gore, but I disagree. I thought it was basically saying that the virus is toxic masculinity. Like there's a lot of sexual violence, sexualized violence against women, and I thought it was exploring some interesting things in that regard. So I really enjoyed this one. Not necessarily into skull fucking, but the gore is very good. So I enjoyed that.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it yet. So
I haven't either. In fact, I was kind of said, yeah, you might be okay not, but with what you're saying though, what both of you are saying, it's one that I've been curious about, and
It's
I just
not
kind
for
of like,
everyone.
what headspace
Yes.
do I need to be in
Yeah.
to watch this movie, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. I'm occasionally in the, okay, I want to watch something fucked up tonight. And if you are in that headspace, that is the movie for you.
All right.
I feel like I only have so much, like I watch a lot of the movies, like, at night before I go to bed. And so like sometimes it's like, yeah, I don't know if that's the last thing I need to like think about
Totally
before. Like,
valid.
okay, good night, have good dreams.
Totally valid.
Yeah.
All right. Moving on to number 8. My choice is Nanny, which I think is now on Hulu. It played some festivals. I saw it at Sundance and just absolutely loved it. Written and directed by Nikyatu Jusu in her debut, starring Anna Diop, who a lot of people probably know from Titans, but she is just fantastic in it. It's the Senegalese immigrant is working as a nanny for this couple who, they're rich, racist white people, and it delves into like immigrant life in America, and it also has elements of like West African folklore, and it deals with like loss and grief, and it's really beautifully done, and it's really interesting, and it's some, like I said, that folklore element, the like exploring the Senegalese aspect, we don't see enough of that in horror, and I thought it was really cool, and I'm really excited to see what she does next.
I have not heard of this one.
Yep.
I'm excited.
You guys, I'm loving your picks because I also have not heard of this, but like this
Yeah,
is
I haven't
great.
either.
It's boring if we're all just picking the
Yeah.
same crap. So
exactly.
like this is, I mean, like we're saying, great year. So many things. Like this is awesome. Yeah, gotta check it out. Hulu. Nice.
Yes, everybody go watch Nanny.
Okay, so I'll go with mine, and I'm sorry, you guys. I am cheating because I had such a hard time. But so I'm gonna my number 8 pick is Pearl and X. We're not going to talk about X because I know that is higher on other people's lists. But Pearl, I had a lot of fun with it. I think it's beautiful. Um, the story is just really fun and whimsical in its own way. And, Mia Goth, I think she just really shines in this one. I mean, she's great in X as well, but this one, it's like, okay, this is her movie. And
Mhm.
there's just so many incredible scenes, and I love it. And I cannot wait to see where it goes with the next one. I feel like the next one, like if it is on this trajectory, but if it is what I think it is, like an Angeline in LA kind of thing, like that's going to be it for me. So I'm going to die happy. So yeah, we'll see what happens, but this movie's great.
Yeah. Other than Barbie, like Maxine is my most
Yeah.
anticipated movie, like that I know of right now. So
Yeah.
It's funny. There's a lot of this discussion about, are you an X person or a Pearl person? It seems like, there, and X for me is sort of like the one I would sort of traditionally gravitate toward. I mean, it's got a lot of great kills. It's got, some interesting commentary. It's got, a killer crocodile. Cool.
Mm-hmm.
And all that. But for some reason, I feel like Pearl is the one that my mind just, I sort of think about more. It's the one that sort
Mm-hmm.
of comes for, and I'm not even sure why that is. It just sort of something
They're
about it is it's really evocative, and I, I was just
You like
um,
classic films though. Like you're a big like
I
you're a
do. I
big
mean,
Universal monster. Like you're a big
sure.
like I don't know, but
Well, I was
I
watching that. I was like, oh my gosh, he remade The Wizard of Oz.
Yep.
I
uh-huh.
just loved that element of it, and it's just like this really dark, twisted version of The Wizard of Oz, and um, I don't know. I it's one that I'm really interested in just watching them all, when all three are together, and this is a set, and watching them in, various orders even, just
yeah.
to see how they play together. I think it's just they're I mean, both of them are just so good. I was I was lucky. I felt lucky to be able to see these tiny movies on a huge screen, both of them, seeing them in the theaters, um, essentially by myself, because they weren't packed theaters. Pearl actually had a few. It was funny because at the I knew there was going to be the little Maxine teaser at the end of Pearl, so I was waiting around for that. And a guy was leaving the theater, and he said, "Hey, that was even better than the first one." And I was kind of like, I wasn't sure at that time, but as I've gone on from there, I kind of feel like, maybe but I don't know. I mean, it'll be interesting to see when it's all kind of a whole thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're both so good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I just caught Pearl over the weekend,
Hmm.
and it almost made the list. I wanted to see if this would make the list, and it came really close.
Yeah,
Um, Mia Goth is just incredible. Again, the monologue she gives at the
yeah,
end is so heartbreaking and terrifying. It's this really wonderful riff on The Wizard of Oz. It really is, like, you can see all the parallels there. I love Ty West. I'm really looking forward to Maxine as well, to see this trilogy. I think he's just able to jump into different styles of filmmaking with such ease.
yeah.
Uh, I've been on board with him since The Roost. I remember seeing that in a repertoire theater in Boston, like before House of the Devil was even out, and just really like, oh my god, this guy's incredible. So I think the reason it didn't make my list is it just takes a little bit too long for the genre stuff to get
Mm-hmm.
going. It's
Sure.
a really good character study
Hmm.
before that, and when she breaks bad, she really breaks bad. I love the whole sequence of her coming out of the house and getting the axe. Like, it's
Mm-hmm.
so not afraid to take its time and just linger and let it settle. And you, as a viewer, have to let it, like, oh, this is what's going on. Like, it's just chef's kiss. Again, any other year, this would probably be a top 5 pick for me.
Okay, yeah. So my number 8 is The Black Phone, Scott Derrickson. And again, I know this is further up on another list, so I'll just say I saw this twice in the theater with my son both times. So actually, Studio 666 isn't his favorite. This one is. Black Phone is, and I think, particularly, I think the Ethan Hawke performance is just so iconic in a way, sort of instantly iconic. It's really effective, and uh, I know that there's a little bit of backlash against this movie, but I don't care. I really do genuinely enjoy it, and some of the criticisms I think are actually kind of the point of the movie. so, uh, so anyway, but I'll say more about that when we.
My number 8 is Speak No Evil, a Danish horror movie. It is one of the most uncomfortable movies I think I have ever watched. It's about a family that meets up with another family they met on a overseas holiday. They go and meet up with them at their home, and the family is now nothing like they were when they met up when they were back on holiday. And it's really a movie about how social niceties and social norms will kill you. Like, basically, instead of listening to that red flag that's going, like, in that alarm blaring in the back of your head, you're like, well, it would look really bad if I were to just leave right now, and we can't have that happen. What will they say about us? And it just gets more and more uncomfortable the last 20 minutes of this movie. And even as I'm watching it, I'm like, there's no way they're going to go here. There's no way they're going to do this. Like, it's all going to work out. Folks, mild spoiler, it doesn't work out. It has a line very similar to The Stranger when at the end they're like, why are you doing this? And they're like, well, you let us. So it is one of the most uncomfortable movies I have ever watched. I kind of want to revisit it, but I don't know if I have the stomach for it. And again, streaming on Shudder.
Yeah, I know a lot of people have this on their year-end list. I was not a huge fan. I do agree that it's very uncomfortable to watch. I was not a huge fan, and a part of that is when the director was introducing it at Sundance. He was talking about how he's not a horror fan and he's never done horror. And that kind of, I think, colored my perception because I was noticing okay, this is not someone who typically swims in horror waters. And I was picking up on things like that. And I also want to revisit it because I'm like, am I just not responding to this as a neurodivergent person who is just frustrated with these characters for not acting how I would act? So part of that is a personal thing that I want to interrogate. But the ending is just as bleak and uncomfortable and brutal as you say it is. So fair warning to people who want to check it out, though I would encourage you to check it out, and I'd be interested to know what other people think because I'm still wrestling with my own reaction to it.
I think that you sometimes find that persons that don't necessarily love horror movies make fantastic horror movies when they dip their toes in the water.
Mm-hmm.
And I'll use Sam Raimi as an example. Like, Sam Raimi wasn't necessarily a massive horror fan before The Evil Dead. He was more like a loved comedy, but he did his research and was like, horror movies make money, so we're going to do a horror movie. And he made one of the greatest ones of all time because he could look at it and say, and I think this is what Speak No Evil does. He's like, it's ridiculous that people act like this, so we're going to lean super far into it. And just kind of pull back the curtain a bit. So I get where that can crawl up someone's keister. Like, oh, how dare you, non-horror movie fan, say. It bothers me more when someone makes a horror movie and they try to tell the audience, well, it's not really a horror movie. Like, that is what upsets me.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, Wes Craven had seen one horror movie before he made Last House on the Left. He had only Night of the Living Dead was the only horror movie he'd ever seen. So
I haven't seen this movie, and it gives me anxiety just thinking about it. Like, I've heard enough about the plot. Like, it makes my skin crawl. I as a person have a hard time with like confrontation, and I don't do well sometimes in social situations because I have issues with anyways. it's just the whole premise of this just it puts me on edge. So I'll see it eventually, but today is not that day.
I will say, if you've seen the movie, if you know, you know, and when you watch the movie, you'll know the moment. But my parents have a legendary story about going to see the Amityville Horror with their best friends at the time. And when they go back, they're leaving the house. Obviously, everything is literally going to hell. They're leaving the house, but they go back for the dog. My dad's best friend Jeff was in the theater and yelled, "Oh, fuck the dog." And everybody in the theater lost it. I had a fuck the dog moment with this movie. So I think that was part of my frustration, and it kind of pulled me out of it because I just started thinking about my dad and Jeff. But
that's so funny. How dare you, sir? That's a dog.
I know, right?
I'm like getting angry thinking about it. Like, that's a giant character defining moment for him in the movie. Like, anyways,
right? But yeah, anyway. Number 7. Moving on from the fuck the dog moment. Mine is The Innocents, which
fuck
is
them kids moment.
Fuck them kids. Yes. A Norwegian horror movie. It's got 2 of my favorite things. It's got fuck them kids, / killer kids. And it's got the acknowledgement that the adults in your life will not protect you. That's one of my favorite things in a horror movie. It's one of my favorite things about the original Halloween when none of Laurie's neighbors come to her rescue. The adults in your life cannot and or will not protect you. And it's about some kids who live in an apartment complex and they discover that they have telepathic powers. And being kids who like to pull wings off flies and other things, they start playing with those telepathic powers in less than altruistic ways. And the situation devolves from there. And we have kids fighting each other, kids, running amok. And it's just, I really like it as just a character study in what humans will do with unlimited power. But again, I also like exploring the ways that the world can't protect you and what you do as you grow up and you realize you gain all this power, but you might not necessarily deserve it because you're a bad person. I'm really fascinated with it. It's a really good movie.
This movie's rough. It's brutal but really good. Speaking of animals, there's a few scenes in there that are very actually
yes,
content warning. But I will say, it is a really beautifully made film. These kids are incredible actors, and I think it's very interesting the way it talks about childhood and kind of that the nature of just exploring what it means to be, a human and okay, I think this is bad, but is it? And what kind of person do I want to be? And exploring that evil, but in a really innocent way. I don't know. It's very interesting. But don't enter lightly. That's all I'll say.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah, another movie I've not heard of. And I love your list, Jessica, because there's now at least 2, maybe 3 movies where I'm like, yeah, I have to go check these out.
Yeah.
Awesome. I've heard of this one, but I haven't seen it yet. I wasn't really sure what it was. Obviously, it shares a title with one of my favorite movies ever, The Innocents from 1961. But obviously, it sounds like a very different kind of movie. But yeah, I'm looking forward to checking this one out, though.
Awesome. Yay. I feel like I've succeeded if I'm like, yay, go check out these movies that you've not heard of. So
yeah.
Anyway, Rachel, you are up next.
So mine, number 7 is the new Hellraiser. I think I'm the only one. This is not higher on anybody's list, right? No. Okay. I know a lot of people did not like this, but this really worked for me. There was a lot of things about it that I really appreciated. I thought it was shot beautifully. I love when iconic, reboots, requels, whatever you want to call them, take the franchises in new directions. And I really think that Bruckner and his whole team, they made the best of it, really, honestly. I think that they paid tribute and homage to the original mythos and story, but took it in a new direction that I think is really interesting. And I know that it's getting a lot of flack because it's not sexy enough or kinky enough, but I think they're addressing those same issues in a different way. and like talking more about the addiction angle, and take like how that seductive quality of that. And so I think that it's worth revisiting with that lens in mind, maybe if you haven't. But I thought the creature design for the new Cenobites is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
I think Ben Lovett handled the music perfectly, same way, like using those themes, those Christopher Young themes that are so iconic to the original movie, but also, making them his own. I'm just impressed. I don't know. I think it's the most we can hope for, I think, when it comes to beloved properties. So yeah, that's my opinion anyways.
Yeah, I liked this one. I am not the biggest Hellraiser fan. Like I don't have a huge loyalty to the original. I don't connect to Clive Barker movies. I keep trying, and I'm not going to stop trying until it happens. But I don't know if it'll ever happen. So I enjoyed this. I didn't love it, but I'm with you. I like how they explored the addiction angle more deliberately, I think, which was smart. And I again, the creature design is fantastic. The new Pinhead is incredible. That voice, I specifically avoided all trailers and everything, so I would not hear the voice until I watched it, and it just blew me away. So yeah, I thought it was a really interesting approach, but I am not a Hellraiser authority, so I can't really speak to it from that angle. So it was good for me, but not my favorite, probably.
Fair.
I've seen most of the Hellraisers. I haven't seen the last couple, the ones that don't have Doug Bradley, except for this one. And this is, I thought this was like the third or fourth best of the Hellraisers, which I know to some people's like, well, that's not saying much. But, I think I do really, I was particularly drawn to like the design. I think Jamie Clayton is just fantastic as the Hell Priest. And just the way that the robes are like their flesh flayed in different ways and stuff was really unique, and the look, the sound, the voice was all really well done. I liked the different configurations of the box thing. There were some different things. It did feel like they were kind of going in slasher territory a little bit, which was a little odd to me for Hellraiser. But where they solve this part of the configuration, and this knife pops out of it, and the blood.
Somebody told me, I heard somebody else who is more of an authority, I guess. Actually, Rebecca McKendry was talking about, and she said she was saying that that's actually part of like the graphic novel, like all of those configurations and stuff. So it was drawing. So I don't actually know, because I haven't read that. But
I knew were, but like the sort of it felt like certain elements were kind of like, okay, let's turn the Cenobites into slashers. A little bit, but that's me. I mean, I think it was an interesting movie. But yeah, so I'm glad I watched it. Don't regret that.
Yeah, I caught it. Did I go away?
No,
there was just a long pause.
It was just like, yeah, I watched it.
I watched this movie on Hulu.
This was a movie I saw.
It's probably a top 3 Hellraiser, but that's almost like being the tallest tree in the play in some regards. And it sounds like and I don't mean to slag this movie. I do think like Bruckner shoots a beautiful movie. Some of the visuals are gorgeous. The Cenobite design is gorgeous. I like that there are real consequences at the end of this movie, that it doesn't just wrap up with a bow. Like, the lead has to really suffer loss for her actions. Like, there's a real consequence for what she's chosen to do. It's just like, it does kind of rip out a lot of what makes Hellraiser. So I don't necessarily like that part of it. And I did find like some of the characters pretty grating. So it was just kind of hard to spend a 2-hour journey with them. But it's a gorgeous movie. I would like to see Bruckner do more of these. I think it should have been a theatrical release.
Yeah. I don't know if it was ever intended to be. I'd be curious because I mean, it is Disney, Hulu. I know it was really funny. I got the screener and it was like Disney's Hellraiser, and I was like, "What?"
Which is
Like,
amazing.
that's weird.
There are a
This is
few
the
like
world we
that
live
on
in
this
now.
list, you know.
So if you're in Europe and you have Disney Plus in Europe, like you're watching Hellraiser on Disney Plus.
Wild.
That's amazing.
Nuts.
My sister lives in France and has Disney Plus, so I'm going to have to tell her to be a little more careful if the kids are scrolling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Does she live in France in the place where the naked lady stands?
She does indeed.
Yes,
Right next
excellent.
door.
Excellent.
I hear there's a hole in the wall. When, you know.
Going back
It's
to
glorious. We already talked about that.
Oh, we already talked about Glorious. There we go.
All right. I think Brian and Mike, you are both up.
We
Yeah.
are both up because we got the same movie here at number 7.
3, 2, 1, say it.
Deadstream. Yeah. I love movies that hate social media. So they're just my jam, I guess. I watched like 3 this year. I was like, I like this. Ingrid Goes West and Chef, and then Deadstream. This is sort of a disgraced YouTuber or something. They never really specify what he did exactly or what he said, but it was certainly something that got him quote unquote canceled, I guess. And so he agrees to stream from inside a haunted house in Utah, right? And and he's going to spin this wheel and do these sort of crazy things inside this house to conjure the spirits and get them riled up. And I don't know. It's so funny. It's so bizarre. It is genuinely scary. It had me at turns jumping and laughing. It's got a little bit of the Sam Raimi quality to it at times too. And I don't like found footage that much. It's just not really my bag. But sorry, I've been watching Austin Powers movies with my kids. But I just had a blast with this movie. It's so much fun, and it's just terrific. And you're thinking, okay, there's so many things in this movie. It was like, that is the dumbest decision this person could make, but it makes sense because it's someone who's like a streamer, you know, and streamers do these kinds of stunts, and it's kind of the world we live in. I've just found this so entertaining.
Yeah, I also like a movie that takes down like vloggers and streamers and Twitchers. I find that whole culture insufferable.
Yeah.
I absolutely hate that so many kids I work with who like 8th graders that read at a 2nd grade level are like, I'll just be a YouTuber one day. And I'll be like famous and rich. And I just want to shake them and be like, this is not going to happen.
Right.
I think 100 years from now, we're going to look back at the fall of man and say social media is what did it to us. Now, all that said, this movie's a fucking riot. It is such a great companion piece to Evil Dead 2. The writer, co-director, co-writer, and star, Joseph Winter, he's really charming in a way where you're like, I hate you, but you're also super charming, and I'm kind of rooting for you at the same time. That's a really hard thing to pull off.
Yeah.
There is something about the effects of this movie that scream, we bought everything we needed at Spirit Halloween an hour before the shoot, and we are not going to apologize for it for even a minute.
Right.
It's something like wonderfully amateurish about it, and it's just got so much heart, and it's fun, and there are genuine scares in it. Absolutely love this movie, and it's, again, streaming on, like, my first 5 picks are all streaming on Shudder, people. So
yeah, this one was so funny. It was like, I saw it when it was playing some festival, and like at first when I started watching it, I was like, oh god, like, I'm gonna have to review this, and like, this is not for me. And then the more it went along, it totally won me over. Like, he was so obnoxious at first, but I don't know how he did it. Like, he just, I don't know. You get totally won over by this character. And I thought it was just so funny and clever. And I thought that he really nailed those, like, it wasn't just like, okay, we've done the research and I'm doing this impersonation. It was like, you could actually believe that he would be a successful YouTuber. And
Yeah.
the comments that are like on the
Oh,
screen,
the comments are the
are
best. I
so
love that.
funny. And that like feels very authentic, like things people would be saying. Like, I don't know. They just did such an incredible job at actually putting in the time where it mattered. Like, yeah, like it does. Yeah, they they didn't have the biggest budget and they did what they could and they made the most of what they could. But it's just, they stepped up where it did matter, and I think that that's just so great. And it's been great to see them, because they did the last segment in VHS 99, right?
Mhm.
And so he's
Oh,
also in
I haven't
that, and
watched that one
that's
yet. Yeah.
yeah, and that's equally as fun. And I believe they are from Utah, so I don't know, it's cool to see these two filmmakers. Is it Joseph and Vanessa Winter, I think?
Mhm.
Yeah, I believe so. Yeah.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know, it's just really great to be like, to see these two like new-ish, yeah, I know they've probably been doing it a long time, but they're new to the world at large, and just see them like just killing it. And I can't wait to see what they do next.
Same. Like I enjoy horror comedy, but my biggest pet peeve is when it's just a comedy. And
Right.
sometimes there are horror trappings, but there are no actual scares. But like everybody
Yeah.
has said, there are actual scares. Like I jumped and flailed my arms so much that I almost gave myself a black eye at one point because there's such a good jump scare. And that is the highest praise for me because I
Yeah.
love a good jump scare more than anything. But it's hilarious. But when you can scare me and make me laugh in the same movie, you're gonna win me over. And like his character is such a terrible person, but
Yeah.
he makes you at least engaged enough to want to find out what happens to him. You're not like actively rooting for him to die right from the beginning. Like, but even though he's just a really awful person, but they walk more than one tightrope in this movie, and it's really fascinating and just so well done.
And the fan who's like shows up like halfway
Oh,
through,
yeah.
like that was
Brilliant.
so funny. And I thought that she did an incredible job. Like, I don't know. It was very surprising because I really thought that I was not going to like it like the first like 10 minutes, and then completely switched my mind by the end. So,
Yep.
Yeah, when I saw it was found footage, I was like, "Oh no!" And
Yeah.
then but it won me over pretty quick too. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Number 6, we have already gone into Resurrection pretty much in depth, but Resurrection was my pick for number 6. So we'll skip over me and head to Rachel.
nice. My number 6, I believe, is further up, so we don't have to go into it too much. But it was Scream, which I can't believe came out this year. Like, it feels like
It feels like a
eons
million
ago.
years ago.
Like,
What
here
a
we are talking
decade.
about the new one next year, which is also wild. But yeah, I
Yeah.
legitimately thought this was like 5 years ago. But here we are. So we'll talk about that in a minute.
Yeah.
All right, Brian, is yours taken, or can we talk about your pick?
Looks like I think mine is farther up on. Is it not?
No?
It's not.
No,
You're
you're
For
good.
some reason, I thought it was farther up on someone. Yeah. Okay. So my number 6 is Prey, the new Predator movie. Also on Hulu as a release, just like Hellraiser, and along with Texas Chainsaw over on Netflix. Sort of another legacy sequel that uh, ended up on a streaming service. But for me, this was the one to watch. This was my favorite one, and this is just I just loved that it didn't need to latch on to anything that came before so much. It could build its own rules a little bit, while still fitting into the mythology of the existing films. And I'm not the biggest Predator fan. I think that it's a fine series. I've seen the first one and I've seen Predators, I haven't even seen all of them. I've never seen Predator 2. I've never seen The Predator, the uh, Shane Black one, which is probably the reason why this one went to streaming and not to theaters. But I've heard a good point. And this was from Elric Kane. He said this a few times on Colors of the Dark, I believe, that if this had gone to theaters, it would have been a flop because people would have based it on their experience with the previous movie, which was not well received, as we know by now, I'm sure. But this ended up being a huge hit on streaming because it was so unexpected. I think that it would be as good as it is, and I think this is really, for me, I like this probably as much as the original. I think
Whoa.
it's quite good. Yeah. I know. Them's fighting words.
It's all right.
But I think where they go with this is really fascinating, and having a great resourceful heroine as your lead, and having indigenous peoples, and then doing the dub in the original language, which is pretty cool too. So yeah, I was just really surprised and impressed by this movie. I had a great time. I liked the design of the monster in this version, in this iteration. I thought was really clever and interesting. So yeah, had a good time with it.
Yeah, this was one of my honorable mentions. I loved this movie. I'm a huge Amber Midthunder fan. She's fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
Shout out to Legion. She's so good on that. And I watched the Comanche version. I have not watched the English language version. I would like to watch both of them kind of back to back to
Sure.
just because I think that's cool, and I'm really glad they offered that option. But yeah, I've only seen Predator and now Prey. Those are the only two movies in this franchise I've seen.
Some would say that's all you need to see.
Fair enough.
I don't know. Alien versus Predator is pretty fun.
I'm a little bit of an apologist for Predators. I thought with Adrian Brody, I thought that was kind of.
I agree as well.
Same.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Predator series is a lot more fun than people give it credit for. I think it's the problem that it has is much like Halloween. The first movie is so good that it's really hard for anything to live up to it after that. Because the first Predator is like the perfect action movie.
Mm-hmm.
I think, Brian and Jess, you said everything perfectly about this movie. So the only thing I'll say is I saw the tweet earlier this week of Carl Weathers talking about his workout regimen for Predator and how like there's no human growth hormone, no steroids. It was just like pure protein and working out. And that dude was just fucking jacked. This is the second best movie in the Predator series. I can see why some would prefer it, especially like a Gen Z crowd where it might speak to them a bit more. But it's a really good pairing with the first Predator. I think it does. It's a much different movie, but it like holds up that legacy really well in ways that like a lot of the later movies really don't.
I'll also say, like, I like, similar to why I liked Hellraiser 2, I liked what it does with the mythos that's already previously built. I think it was really smart, what they did, and that idea of just putting Predator, wherever in a different time, I think is really like refreshing and a different place, and how that creature and that culture interplays with a different, culture than we've seen previously in this franchise. And also that dog was a shelter dog that they adopted for the movie. Yes. And now it's just so cute. And now it's just this famous dog. And I don't know. I can't. I mean, of course, I can't help but love stories like that. This is an honorable mention for me too. I think this was great. And it's in the snow. Predator in the snow at points, right? There's snow, right? I watched it a long time ago. It's okay.
That's okay. I have too. So I
don't remember snow.
Am I making that up? For some reason, I thought there was snow. Maybe it's just like smoke or something. I don't know.
There's a lot of that. Anyways. And they're in the mountains. So, I mean, they're in like a really scenic vista. So
Oh, whatever. The
stands to
scenery is
reason.
beautiful, and I loved seeing the Predator with these different, less
Ouch.
technologically advanced cultures, in different, like,
Yeah.
technology-wise and weapons-wise. Like, I think that
And
was
I also
interesting.
like that the Predators' weapons were not as advanced as they are in later movies,
Yeah,
or in earlier
different.
movies. You know what I mean? I liked that. It was actually firing projectiles instead of lasers, for example. And I thought
Mhm.
that was a cool kind of element that was part of this. That it shows that these creatures are evolving as well as
Yeah.
um, in their weaponry and et cetera, as well as human beings. So I thought that was cool.
Brian, you had this as well earlier on your list, Terrifier 2. And I'm in the same boat. Like, I don't like All Hallows Eve. I didn't like Terrifier. I went back and rewatched it after seeing this, and I'm like, maybe I was wrong. And no, I still don't like it. I am shocked by how much fun I had watching Terrifier 2. It has a kill that is so nasty and ridiculous that
So ridiculous.
you have to laugh.
Yeah.
You just have to, because it's so, and I just love that it basically pulls you out of it and you think it's over, and then like 20 seconds later it cuts back to it again and it's still going on and it's even worse, and it's just like, nope, we're still doing this right now. Like, I started to laugh my ass off during that, and I feel really bad for the woman next to me who was on a date because she was not amused by
Oh no.
my laughter. But it's got a great story to it as well. Like, it tries to build on the mythos a little bit. I think that David Howard Thornton as Art the Clown is
Mhm.
going to be as synonymous with this character potentially as like Robert Englund is with Freddy Krueger, to the point where
Yeah.
and I'm not saying he'll be as iconic or as big, but you cannot picture anyone else playing this role. The physical acting he's doing and the facial acting he's doing is just incredible, especially in the scene at the Halloween shop where
Oh,
it just is
man. Yeah.
funny. And look, whoever deemed, like Lauren Lavera, whoever said like, this is going to be your costume, like you're basically going to dress like Xena Warrior Princess,
Mhm.
whoever decided like that was going to be her costume needs a huge raise. They need like whatever they want for Christmas. Like, and I'm usually not like, oh my God, she's so hot, but good fucking God, like, this woman is ridiculously beautiful, and
Mhm.
probably the only way I'm going to watch a 2.5 hour slasher movie is
Yeah.
just loved her in this. And she's really good at it. And I love the relationship with her and a younger brother. I love the mother in this movie, who you think is like, oh my God, she's terrible, until she's not.
Mashed potatoes.
And oh my God, the trick or treat scene
Oh,
when they're
jeez.
using that body part as a candy dish, and one of the girls is like, why is it sticky? Again, I just lost it in the theater. And this is not even to say what a great feel-good story.
Yeah.
Just like this little movie that comes out of nowhere, isn't even supposed to get a
Okay,
release.
the story of the movie. I thought, like, I haven't seen it, so I was like,
Yeah.
wait, is
Yeah.
it a feel-good story?
That took me by surprise too. Yeah.
Yeah, like how this movie kind of came out of nowhere and found an audience, and it shows again, like, if you give horror audiences what they want, which is sometimes questionable what we want, we will turn out and support you in huge ways.
The fact that this movie, was made on how much was it? 250,000, 500,000?
Something like that, yeah.
And
Yeah.
made over 10 million in theaters is really something. And I mean, I sort of shout out to my home team, with Bloody Disgusting being one of the major backers of this movie. It was just sort of like took them by as much surprise as anybody. 'Cause I saw Brad Biska and John Squires were like, "What?"
It's also like
what?
really funny because you think like, Brad, and like, because
Yeah.
he's pretty involved in the VHS series, right?
Right,
And then
yeah.
like I mean, he's doing good.
Yeah.
But it's just I always think about like with so much content, like what is actually going to be like remembered and memorable like 10 years from now, 20 years from now, what are going to be the classics? Because I think a lot of stuff is just going to kind of, and that's
Sure,
fine, like
sure,
shuffle
it
down
always
and just
happens. Yeah.
yeah. But it's just the fact, I mean, this might be one of those films. And you think
I
about like
know.
iconic new like franchises and villains, like good job, guys. Like shout out to you, because we're going to get more Terrifiers after this, right?
Yeah.
And it's very impressive. And I haven't even seen it. I did not like the first one at all. Not for me. But the way everybody keeps talking about the second one, I feel like I gotta check it out.
Well,
I think you will like it.
Yeah,
I think this screams Rachel.
a big
Oh.
piece of this is that the first one is just the first one just felt so misogynistic to me.
Yeah.
It's just like
just gross
it's
and mean.
gross.
I don't know.
Whereas this one has a really powerful female lead who's so good and so effective. And then there's also sort of like the female sort of specter villain, which is weird and interesting, and it's like then they don't really explain what's going on there, and it's really fascinating. And for me, I'm kind of into religious horror, and I could, because of my upbringing, I could see all of these sort of strange and surprising sort of links to like biblical references and stuff that most people probably didn't even notice or think about. And I was like, wow, this really has something going on here that the first one just did not at all.
All right.
So yeah, I found it fascinating and just really compelling. I mean, 2.5 hours. I don't know if it needs to be 2.5 hours, but
it doesn't feel 2.5 hours.
No, it's not bad at all. Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Brian,
It needs to be 6 hours.
do you have an article coming out on the religious references that other people didn't catch in that movie? Because I would read the hell out of that. I haven't seen the movie yet. I plan to, but
well, here's the thing. I it's one of those. Whenever I write an article like that, I need to watch it just to, and I don't have Screenbox. I don't have a Blu-ray of it, so I'm kind of like, maybe that might be something worth. Hey, you might have given me something to pitch to Rock there, but yeah, I'm or to John. John would probably like, yeah, I'll prove the hell out of it.
I don't think anyone at Bloody Disgusting is going to turn down more Terrifier.
Right.
Visca's like, I need a new Apple Watch.
Yeah. So, I mean, I would be interested. It would be. I think it would be interesting to explore that further. Personally. I mean, because I was having seen it once, I was just like, did I really see that? Is how I felt about it. But yeah.
Gotcha. All right.
So yeah, sure.
Yeah,
I'll do that,
do it.
Jessica, just for you.
Yay, thank you. I appreciate it. Good looking out.
Yeah.
All right. Number 5 is a bit of a wild card. I think some of us have choices that we'll be discussing later on. My number 5 pick is X, which is much higher up on someone else's list, so we will hold off on that for now. Rachel, to you.
Yeah. So my number 5, sorry, I forgot where we're at, is Black Phone. And I know this has been it's so funny. Some people really didn't like this, but this was for me. Yeah. I loved it. I loved so much about this. I loved the look of it. I loved the era that it was in. I loved the kids. I loved how simple the story was. I feel like a lot of people had a problem with that almost. Mm-hmm. Just that, like, there is no, like, this isn't a complete story. This isn't a complete movie or whatever. Or some of the kind of more supernatural aspects, but I really liked it. Ethan Hawke is great. I loved how simple it really was and sweet. I loved seeing the young actress from Psycho Gorman, seeing her in a slightly more toned down role. But I think she's just great. And it's funny, like the lead, the young man lead actor, I guess, like blew up with younger audiences, and he got like incredibly popular on social media, like because he has a ton of fans. It's very funny. But I also, and I love Scott Derrickson.
That won't go horribly wrong and will be completely healthy, I'm sure.
Well, I don't think it, he didn't, it wasn't his doing really. I think just a lot
Right.
of young people are like, he's so cute. Um, I love Scott Derrickson. I am a big fan of his, pretty much anything he does. I feel like I just really like his vibe. I don't know. And the music, Mark Corbin's music is great. So yes, I liked this a lot. I've seen it like 3 times. I like it every time. So I don't know. I don't know why, but big fan.
I enjoyed
Yeah,
this one too. Like I'm mainly for Ethan Hawke, I think, but it also child performances can be hit or miss because if someone is too precocious, it's annoying. But
Mm,
I think the kids walk the line really well here. They're really talented and seem like really sweet kids. And like I kind of like seeing kids geek out over success. Like they're just generally excited
mm,
to be in a big movie, and they just
yeah.
can't believe how like nice people are being, which I love. And I hope that they continue to have people just be nice to them and not be mean to them on social media.
right.
But
Yeah.
yeah, like the grabber is just like there's something. I'm not saying he's going to go down in horror history as one of the great villains, but there's something so simple and iconic about him, about that mask, and about Ethan Hawke's physical movements when he's doing the smile and or this face. And I just there's something
Yeah.
about his physical performance that really stuck with me that I really loved. Like even if I didn't like anything that was going on around him, which I did, but I just for his performance alone, I would have enjoyed it, and his voice and his gestures. I just thought it was really brilliant. Um, as just a horror villain, as like an iconic performance.
Even just the way he sits in that chair,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
up in the kitchen, is just his legs sort of spread out the way they are, and he just
Uh-huh.
it's so physical, and it's so much the kind of thought that went into that performance. I feel is really strong.
Mm-hmm.
One of the criticisms I saw for this was it's Deus ex machina the movie, and I'm like, that's kind of the point of the movie, though, isn't
Yeah.
it?
Mm-hmm.
That you've got
That's baked
this,
into it.
yeah,
Yeah.
you've got this supernatural, you have something that it's not just random, that there's purpose, I think, and that goes in a lot into Scott Derrickson's stuff. I mean, because he is a religious person, and he does believe in a higher power, and so you see some of those um kinds of things baked into his films and into his stories. And I think that um and I just love the way it all, all of these things that look like failures sort of add up to being something successful. You know, I think
Hmm.
that's just sort of this cool thing about the movie, and it ends up being hopeful and fun, and genuinely scary. And I like James Ransone as the brother. I think it's hilarious.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Um, it's just got a lot going for it, and I had a great time both times I saw this in the theater, and I actually think I liked it better the second time than the first. It's really got a lot going on, and then that didn't even mention, like the parental relationship, the very complicated parental relationship with Jeremy Davies' character in there, which
Yeah.
I know really bothered people too.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I get that. I get that because I mean, but it's sort of a, again, it feels like there's more there than we
Yeah.
learn, but it's just kind of a fascinating element of it too. Anyway, a lot going on.
Yeah. I wanted to touch on that as well with the parental relationship because at the end of the movie, the children are returned, but they're not safe.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're still with a very troubled parental figure who's obviously suffered like a grievous loss. So it's very interesting because you're like, okay, you're back, but how safe are you at this point? Like you're out of the hands of one monster, but you're in the hands of another monster.
Mm-hmm.
Hmm.
Yeah.
I think the performances are all great. I'm pretty much on board with everything that Derrickson and Cargill have done together. I'm on the record like Sinister is one of the best movies of the
Oh
past
yeah,
decade. I
Sinister's
love that
incredible.
movie.
Mm-hmm.
This is like a really good adaptation of like Joe Hill's source material. I think it's very creepy. And Brian, like you said, Rachel and Brian, how they build on failure.
Mm-hmm.
Like they make mistakes. Like Finney makes mistakes. Finney's not getting it right, but every time he makes a mistake, he builds on that. He learns from it. He adapts, and I think that's a really powerful lesson for kids. I think we are very afraid of letting children fail,
Yeah.
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 and I think we need to be there when they do to support them.
Right.
But its failure is okay as
Mhm.
long as you learn from it and don't give up. And it's genuinely, like, the mask is genuinely creepy.
Yeah.
I think like Eddie Ransone as the brother is pretty awesome as well. Like, I love seeing him turn up, and I just love that he's right. I just love that he ends up
It's so funny.
Mhm.
right.
Conspiracy theory. Yeah.
And it's a genuinely disturbing, chilling movie. I didn't quite see the gay coding of the grabber. I know that was one of the arguments against this movie. I was maybe blind to that. I don't want to dismiss anybody who saw that, especially right now when LGBT persons are under such attack by right-wing forces. So far be it from me to dismiss that. I personally didn't see or hear that, but I don't want to dismiss anyone's critique of that in any way, shape, or
Yeah.
form.
Yeah. I do want to
I
shout
also-
out. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, I just love the attention to the side characters. I mean, something I love about this movie is, like, I mean, it makes me cry like every time. Just like these kids, like how much it's like we don't get to know these kids who, the grabber kills. We don't get to know them for long, but like I think that Derrickson did a really good job of making you care that these young men like lost their lives and like really feel the weight of their loss, that they weren't just like, oh yeah, he killed these guys, like you actually get to know them a little bit and like the tragedy of that loss, and like the Robin guy who's like teaching him how to fight and stuff, like oh my gosh. I just it's I just that's something I don't know that every director or writer would have given them that space and that time and that attention, and I just really respect that, and I think it makes it a stronger film.
Agreed. And yeah, going back to the queer coding, I did not pick up on that when I watched it, but I wanted to shout out BJ Colangelo wrote a really good piece for Slash Film. Um, the grabber, gay face, and the danger of conflating the two in the Black Phone. Like, if anybody wants to go check that out, I think it's really worth a read because I thought that was a really strong piece. All right, Brian, it is your turn.
Yeah, mine's higher up on someone else's, so I'll just mention that my number 5 is Phil Tippett's how 20 years in the making film, Mad God, which I have no idea what's going on, but wow, is it amazing.
All right, Mike.
Nope.
That is his movie and his answer.
And since it's higher up on the list, we'll just move on.
All right. Moving on to number 4. Let me see. I'm double checking. All right. I'm the one to discuss Nope. This is my number 4 pick as opposed to Mike's number 5 pick. I am, a Jordan Peele fangirl. I will admit to that. I loved all of his horror films. I love his work. But Nope, I think Us is my favorite of his movies. But Nope feels the most epic in terms of examining what Hollywood does to people, what Hollywood does to Black people in particular. There is so much going on in this film. It's a beautifully shot film. The technical achievement, it is amazing. The performances are amazing. Like, Daniel Kaluuya can do no wrong in my eyes, but he's so good in this. Keke Palmer is amazing in this. The Chris Kattan monologue might be my favorite of the year. I think it gets overlooked in the conversation about great horror monologues of 2022. It's probably the Jordan Peele film I will revisit the most because I feel like there will be so much more to discover every time I watch it. It is just a gorgeously shot, gorgeously performed film with a lot of really interesting ideas about what the Hollywood machine does to people.
I mean, it's a movie where the monster is a giant camera that literally vacuums its victims into it, grinds them up, and then spits out the sludge.
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's a powerful, and people that miss that, I don't understand how you can go ahead and miss that. Um, I love that Jordan Peele is the brand in and of himself. Like, he's kind of like Marvel, where it's like, oh, there's a new Jordan Peele movie, I'm in. I don't need anything else. I'm just going to it. It would have been really easy after Get Out for him to be, I'm sure he got offers from everybody. He could have just been like, sure, I'll do a Marvel movie and cash out. But he is creating these really rich, incredibly deep, nuanced stories. He's working with like his own troupe of performers. I think Keke Palmer is so incredible in this movie.
She's fantastic.
Just so energetic and really the glue that holds it together. And kind of like his Daniel Kaluuya is fantastic, but it's such a reserved performance that you need Palmer's energy to keep going. The other thing is I love that like you feel that Stephen Ewan is going to be this major character in it, and they tell his story and then he just vanishes. And you're like, nope, that's it. He's done. And I watched this right around the time we did Misery for my other show. And there's a line at the end of Misery where James Caan looks at his agent who's telling him to write a book about his experience with Annie Wilkes. It's like, sounds like you want me to like write a book about the worst thing that's ever happened to me in order to make a buck. And that's exactly what Stephen Yen's character is doing in this movie. Like, he's taking the worst thing that has ever happened to him, and he is so disassociated from it that he's like, oh yeah, it's like, you know, that's, he can't even talk about it in how he experienced it. He has to talk about it in terms of like how he saw it in the media on Saturday Night Live, played as a joke. And he's built this shrine to that experience, and he lets people stay there for money. It's just incredible. It's like a side trip in the movie that talks about some of the very fucked up ways we deal with trauma in our lives that aren't always very healthy. So I think I'll be revisiting this movie a lot. And again, like, Peele is 3 for 3. Like, he's just, if he never made a movie again, you would have to talk about him among the greats. I'm not going to say, oh, he's the greatest of all time. He still needs a Carpenter-esque run and a Craven-esque run. But you'd have to have a discussion of like the modern masters. He has to be in there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And I love the way that like there are layers of commoditization and this appetite. Like, he is consuming his trauma in a way that he's removed from it for safety, but other people are devouring him just like Jean Jacket is. You know, the people who are having sex in the shrine to his childhood trauma, like, you can't tell me they're not eating him alive, just like the monster from space is. I'm fascinated with all the different layers of the way that capitalism and entertainment, the way that we consume other people's stories, and how we don't we use the word consume all the time, but we don't think about the implications of that, where we're chewing up other people and spitting them out for our own amusement. I'm fascinated with all the layers that he achieves in the movie.
Yeah, I've only seen this once. I saw it in the theater, and it wasn't what I expected, which is not a bad thing. It was just, there's so much going on. And like, it's very interesting. And it's been super interesting to hear different people's takes on like every little detail has meaning, and every little character, and I don't disagree at all. I think it's almost so overwhelming that it almost takes away from the enjoyment of it for me, because it feels like it's just kind of just so much. So it's actually my least favorite of his films so far, but that's not saying. I mean, he's made some incredible films. It's not a bad film. I definitely enjoyed it, but I feel like I need to watch it again.
Way to be a downer, Rachel.
I'm not a downer. I'm
whole
just
energy
saying
down.
it is beautiful. And what I do love about Jordan Peele is I think we need more filmmakers like him who bring their own crews, give people opportunities. Like, he is somebody who's changing Hollywood and changing big studio films. And I find that just incredibly exciting and powerful in the way that he's able to do that. Like that, it takes somebody like him to actually make changes in the industry, and everybody with him is hired with thought. And his whole entire crew and cast is very diverse in every manner of speaking, and I just love him. So,
Yeah.
so we'll end on that.
I don't really have more to add. So yeah, let's go ahead and just end on that. I guess, I mean, I think that this was a terrific movie. It's one that, like, I had to, again, sort of live with and digest a little bit. And, no pun intended, based on what the movie's about. But, yeah, it's one that I definitely need to revisit. And that's one of the things. Sometimes I go into a Jordan Peele movie thinking to myself, okay, what am I supposed to be learning from this?
Mm-hmm.
And where I should be just going in and just letting the movie happen to me, sometimes. And that's, I think, my one sort of, like you were saying, it can sort of sometimes take away from just enjoying the movie, because you're thinking about, what am I supposed to get out of it when you go in sometimes. Which, that is what it is. And that's not a fault of the film. That's more of a fault of me, I think, as I approach them. But I love all of Jordan Peele's movies. So you just need to revisit all of them, frankly.
Yeah.
All right, Rachel.
Okay, so my number 4 is a film called Missing that I saw at Fantasia this year, and it actually just got an actual physical release and is available on VOD in November. So this is actually out there. It is a Japanese and South Korean co-production, and it is this one was, I watched it, but I didn't know anything about it, and I went in, and it is so good. It's a thriller, but definitely horror. It's about like this father and daughter. The mom has passed away, and they're struggling. The dad is struggling to take care of his daughter. And there's a serial killer on the loose, and they've posted a reward offering a ton of money if anybody has information on this serial killer. And the dad happens to run into the serial killer. I can't remember where, like on a subway or something. And so he decides, if I can find him and find this information, I can get this money. And it starts there, but where it goes is so wild and unexpected and devastating and heartbreaking and terrifying. And I just loved it. It's executed so well and takes a lot of, I think, the expectations that it builds, like that I think anybody that's seen a lot of thrillers and stuff would kind of be like, oh, okay, so this is how it's going. And then it just subverts them all, and it's great. And the actors are great. And yeah, big surprise for me. But it's a great movie. So I highly recommend that anybody seek this out if you see it.
This one's on my watch list, but I have not seen it yet, so I'm excited.
Yeah.
Same. Now I'm more excited to check this out over the break.
I would be, Mike, this would be like a psychoanalysis. I don't know. I'd be very excited to hear what any of you think about this, because there's some very heartbreaking and heartwarming elements to this movie that are, I don't know. There's a lot there.
Brian.
Okay, so my number 4 is the most fun I had in a theater all year. And that is Violent Night. Is it a horror movie? It's got a lot of blood. It's got a lot of smashing with sledgehammers. It's got horror stuff going on. So I'm going to call it a horror movie. It's basically, what if John McClane was Santa Claus and teamed up with the kid from Home Alone and just kicked a bunch of ass. It's, I swear, I don't think I saw this in a theater that was pretty full, and everyone in the theater just got it. They were laughing from front to back through this whole thing. Is it scary? It's not scary, but it's definitely got sort of a okay, so it's, terrorists invade a home, and Santa, the real Santa, happens to who's become disillusioned with the way Christmas is going, um, happens to land at the house, and he reaches to his past, and um, finds his Christmas spirit, and kills a bunch of terrorists. I mean, it's just I don't know what
The
else to say
reason for
about
the
it.
season.
It is, but I mean, it's kind of satirical. It's funny. It's action. It's gore. It's humor. It's what would really happen in a Home Alone scenario with those booby traps. What
Mm.
would that actually look like
Mm.
on people?
Mhm.
But still with a sense of humor and a little bit of wink to it. John Leguizamo is terrific as sort of the lead terrorist person. David Harbour plays Santa Claus, uh, and it's just, I don't know. It was a ton of fun, and I am not going to apologize for loving this movie. It was a blast.
Nor
It
should
was
you.
just a blast. So anyway,
Yeah, this is another one I have not seen, but anytime beefy David Harbour shows up, I'm sold. I'm gonna put this at my number one of the year, even if I haven't seen it yet. So I'm with you.
Yeah, I haven't seen it either, but just the premise alone, like I don't know, I love action movies too. So I mean, that's I think that's great, and I love seeing holiday movies like this coming out. You know, because it felt like for a while that we weren't really getting very many. You know, and I mean, this year there's
oh, there's been a
several.
ton.
So
There's been like six,
yeah,
if
yeah.
you
So it's
include
kind of
the
cool.
Cabinet of Curiosities episode. Uh,
Yeah, so it's kind
yeah.
of cool to see like some big budget, silly holiday movies. So I love that.
Haven't seen it, but I want to. So I agree that this looks right up my alley. It just looks like a lot of fun.
I mean, it probably sends some mixed messages. I see a lot of that popping up, and I'm like, oh, lighten up. It's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun as hell. Just enjoy yourself, for goodness sake.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a
For
one joke
goodness
movie.
sake.
It's
Yeah.
kind of a one joke movie, but I don't know. I just had a blast.
All right, moving on with Mike.
Sure. And I'm just checking here. So yeah, I have Scream as my number 4 movie of the year. And I think, Jess, you have this on your list as well.
I do
I
not
think I did.
actually.
Oh, Rachel. I'm sorry, Rachel does. So we'll kind of go here. This gave me everything I wanted in the requel. It does a wonderful job of passing the baton from the old cast to the new. Like and I said this before this movie came out. If the opening of this movie was like Nev Campbell answering her phone, like Ghostface is back, and she went, "Oh, that's cool. I'm just gonna drink some wine and hang with my kids, and you guys, you got this." That would, and I would love if that was the beginning of this movie. Like she's just like, "Peace out, you got this." 'Cause I don't necessarily want the old cast back at this point. I think they did a great job of handing the baton off. Like
Mhm.
Jenny Ortega is amazing in this movie. I'm just really bummed that Jack Quaid is dead, because he was so delightful in this movie.
Mhm.
Like his delivery of like, "Oh shit, it's Ghostface" is one of the best things
Oh
about
yeah.
this year. Um, Mikey Madison is just doing a great job between this and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. She just
Mm.
plays like these delightfully unhinged characters. I think Radio Silence did as good of a job as you possibly could, paying tribute to Wes Craven. I want to know if you, in the beginning of the movie, when Jenny Ortega is taking that phone call and talking to the gentleman, I think that dude sounds like Wes Craven. And I thought that was very deliberate. Like you listen to the pitch of the voice, the tone, the mannerisms. I'm like, this is a very deliberate nod to Craven. Brian, I would challenge you to go back and listen to that and
I'm gonna
see if
have
you
to do
agree
that.
or disagree.
Yeah, I'll have
The
to do
kills are great. Like it's a pretty gory movie.
that.
Scream is my favorite franchise. There's no bad Scream movie. I remember when I first watched 4, I thought it was so. Like it was good, but I didn't need it. And I came around like later on to really love it. I fucking love this movie from Jump Street. Like I saw it 3 times within the first 10 days it was out. Had such a good time with it in the theater. Um, this setup with Hicks, like, like you get the reverse male gaze, the reverse psycho shower sequence, and then you have him wandering the house, and just how it sets up like the jump scares and then doesn't pay it off and doesn't pay it off, and by the third time you're like, okay, I get it, and you can't help but laugh. And it even made like Officer Judy like really memorable, and it made her death like I didn't want her to, and it's just so sad because what's on the other side of that door, and you're like, oh, this is fucking awful. So I'm all on board for Scream 6, Ghostface Takes Manhattan.
Yeah.
From the first teaser, it doesn't look like they're on a boat, so I'm really I kind of wish they did that. If they just did a boat, if it starts with them on a boat as a giant FU, I would laugh my ass off. So I am all on board for more Scream. Give me more of it.
Yeah. I loved this. I thought that, Ghostface is mean in this. Like the way they film him sometimes. Poor Dewey, like that whole kill sequence, I thought is just like, oh, like it's like gut wrenching.
Yeah.
And I was crying in the theater, but also just like, oh God, like I'm so glad they didn't pull any punches with that. Yeah, oh my God, when he's like says like it's an honor or no, that's in the trailer or something. But I don't know. Just that whole scene is so good, and it's great to see them embrace that same self-awareness that is so inherent in so many of the other Scream movies. And like you said, those jump scares that don't pay off, that like sense of humor. These are filmmakers that know this franchise and love this franchise and understand this franchise and understand what this franchise was doing. So it's so wonderful to see. And I'm very excited to see where it goes. I agree. Like I don't really need any of these other people. Like they're great. I wish that, Nev Campbell got what the money she deserved, but if she's not there, that's okay. It'll be all right and this franchise will survive. I kind of want oh my gosh, if they do like a Warriors thing where this team has to like get from the Bronx to Coney Island, and there's like a gang of Ghostface like after them. Like, I would die.
That would rule.
Yeah,
that would be amazing.
I love that.
Really
idea.
quick, really quick. I just want to say, Jasmine Savoy Brown between Yellow Jackets and this, like, I love Randy. I'm a Randy apologist. I'm not one of those like Randy is toxic. Actually, it's like no, he's not. Shut up. She's better than Randy. And it's really hard for me to say that, but she's so good in this role. Like, I love the energy she brings. I love like what she's adding. I can't wait to hear. That like Mindy is going to have to meet Kirby, right? In the next movie, like,
but Kirby's in it, right?
Yeah, they
have
to
meet.
They have to meet.
Sorry.
They have to meet.
Yeah.
And they have to be like gay besties. That has to happen in the next movie, or else I will burn everything to the
Oh my
ground.
God, what if they're dating? What if that's her new girlfriend?
What if Kirby is the killer?
I can't. Okay. Yeah, we could talk about this a long time.
Right. Welcome to Scream Talk.
Yeah.
We will be covering that next year as soon as it comes out. We'll be adding to
Yes.
We'll be covering that right away.
I liked it too. I don't know what else to say about it. Scream. If you didn't see Scream and you're listening to this, then what are you even doing? So, I had a good time with it. It wasn't one of my favorites. I will certainly be revisiting it. I revisit the Scream movies often for various reasons, obviously. So I will be definitely. This was probably my third favorite Scream movie, which is pretty good. Because my two favorite are the first and the fourth, so that's pretty high praise considering Scream 2 and Scream 3 are good movies too. So anyway,
Yeah, I had to revisit this one recently. I saw it. I didn't see it in theaters. I got spoiled on it by Twitter.
Oh,
Um,
bummer.
Still bitter about it. But
Yeah.
I didn't care for it the first time. But when I revisited it, I liked it so much more, and I appreciated it so much more. I thought it was a lot smarter the second time around, and I appreciated what it was doing more. Um, and I'm with you. Mindy is everything to me. Jasmine Savoy Brown, like I'm a Yellow Jackets obsessive, so I absolutely adore her. But so I would be interested, Brian, to see what you think on a rewatch because
Yeah.
it went way up in my estimation on a rewatch.
Yeah, and I'll definitely have to do that because having seeing it once, a lot of the anticipation was going
Hmm.
coursing through our veins. I think when we were seeing it, so yeah.
Okay. Well,
Mhm.
that's all for Scream Talk, folks. Moving on to our number three choices. My number three choice is Mad God, which Brian already talked about a tiny bit. Phil Tippett's magnum opus, decades in the making. I don't know that I like this movie as much as I appreciate it, but I appreciate it so much that I had to put it on my list because it is
Yeah.
such a phenomenal achievement. It is like nothing I've ever seen before. It is disgusting and hard to sit through and weirdly beautiful, and it's just I've never seen anything like it. I've never experienced anything like it. So I had to put it on my list even if only for that reason. But just the technical achievement, what he does with this movie, with the animation, with the sound design, with everything. And again, I could tell you exactly what happens, but I will tell you that you have to see this movie.
Yeah, that's kind of how I feel about it too. It's just, I mean, I love stop motion. uh, And there's something about what's going on with this one that is just unlike anything. Because I saw Pinocchio and in the theater, which is a terrific movie, but I don't know, for some reason it didn't, hit me like I hoped it might. Whereas this one hit me in ways I didn't expect.
Mhm.
It was, and even just watching it at home, I didn't have a chance to see it in a theater, but it's jarring and it's bizarre and it's mostly silent. I mean, it's well, obviously there's score and there's sound effects, but it's not dialogue. It's not that kind of a movie. But um, just the kinds of imaginative things, or the kinds of things you think of with someone like David Lynch or Cronenberg, or
Mhm.
where there's a lot of sort of feelings like the body, something about the body is happening, and it's and sort of futility, and just this idea of them going down and down and down, farther and farther into the subterranean pit of who knows where. um what they discover there, it's just, I don't know, there's nothing like this movie, and I think that is and that's kind of what makes it impossible to talk about in a way.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You just kind of have to experience
Yeah.
it.
Mhm.
I mean, Phil Tippett has worked on Star Wars,
Hmm.
Jurassic Park, RoboCop, to just name a few.
Hmm.
I've only seen snippets of this movie. He brought it like a completed segment to the very first Telluride horror show I hosted back in 2013. He and like Frank Henenlotter were our featured guests, and it's talked about how long it took him to just do like a 15-minute segment a decade ago. What a labor of love this is,
Hmm.
and to
Hmm.
bring it to fruition, and there are zero compromises with the finished product. So I wanted to squeeze this in, and I feel like if I did, it probably would have made my top 10 list, but I just couldn't get to it in time. But I think, again, it's a Shudder movie.
Hmm.
Everybody needs to really see this movie and experience it. And again, it probably is one of those movies that's going to make me wish I did mushrooms,
Oh, totally.
right?
Yeah,
For sure. Yeah.
absolutely.
So what a legend. And I just like one of the cool little experiences of my life. I just remember eating breakfast with him, and I'm like, I am eating breakfast with the guy that made the dinosaurs and some of the cantina scene and the chess scene. I'm like, it doesn't get much better. It's a little moment, but what a cool moment. So
Wow.
Yeah, Phil Tippett is one of my
Yeah.
sort of heroes.
yeah.
When I was in my younger days, I really wanted to be a special effects artist, and I wanted to be one of the people that like built the models and blew them up. That was what I wanted to do. And Phil Tippett was, one of those guys, and I was like, he did that. He made that stuff happen, and his design work is incredible. I mean, it's things like the Tauntaun in The Empire Strikes Back. You can see
Oh
where
my
some of
God.
that ended up, you know, in other places too. So anyway,
I haven't seen it yet, but I got to, because he's, when people talk about movie magic, he is one of the people. He's one of the magicians. So it's incredible that he actually,
absolutely.
because I remember hearing about him working on this, like, I don't know, years and years ago and something. And so it's just so cool to see that he completed it. And I mean, that's inspiring. Should probably get back to writing that thing or reading because anyways, it's just really cool to see that he actually finished it and it got out and got released.
Yeah. All right, Rachel, your choice.
Oh
Well,
yeah,
we actually have
okay.
the same choice here.
Yes.
Yeah, all right, let's do it, Brian. 1, 2, 3.
The
The
Menu.
Menu. This film is so fun.
Yeah.
I the trailer gives away some things, but don't let that deter you. That's all I'm going to say, because even going in, like, knowing the little few things that the trailer seems to give away, this movie was so funny. I wasn't expecting it to be so funny and just like cynical and smart. And the performances are so good. And I just had such a blast with it. Yeah, I don't know. It could have gone so wrong, but it just was so right and so fun and ridiculous. And I loved it. So
I was kind of expecting it to be a sort of Most Dangerous Game story in reverse.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not what it is, really, at all. And it was, so the trailer actually kind of threw me off from of the scent of what this was going to be. And it's just so satirical. I mean, it's one of the most biting satires, and so smart of a satire. And, I love that kind of thing. And boy, when I left the theater, I wanted a cheeseburger like you couldn't believe. I mean, this has some of the greatest cheeseburger porn in any movie ever.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
yeah, it's something. I'm not going to say why.
Yeah, but what is that expression? If you scratch a cynic, you'll find a romantic. Like, it's so satirical and it's so sharp and so funny, but there's this really heartbroken core about
Yes.
about being an artist and what it's like to try to be the best artist you can be, and also how horrible it is to have to make a living with your art.
Yeah.
And it's just, there's so much going on for artists, for whether you're a chef or a writer or a dancer or whatever. If you're pursuing some art form, there was so much to dig into. And I've tried my best to avoid food puns with this movie, but sometimes it's hard. But there's so much to dig into and to digest with this movie, with regard to just trying to make it as an artist. And it was
and
really
succeeding.
Yeah, exactly.
And like succeeding as an artist, and then like what that does to
What
you.
now?
Yeah, and the futility of success and just the horrible irony when you get to the end and you're like, what next? And what do I do with this? And like, it was a really heartbreaking movie to me, even though it's really funny and sharp and satirical. Yeah.
Yep.
I haven't seen it yet.
I think you'll like it.
Disappointed. Yeah,
Your
I know
dark,
that I'll like
black sense of humor.
I know that I'll like it.
Yeah.
I have to like either shit or get off the pot. Not right now when it comes to my AMC pass, because I just priced it out, and like a couple years ago, like I doubled my value of it, and this year I broke even. I just haven't had a chance to go out as much to movies like a year ago. And I do want to see that in theaters.
Yeah, it's definitely worth it. It's so good.
Ray Fiennes, and of course Anya Taylor-Joy, but the guy that she goes to the island with,
Oh God.
Oh,
the
man.
pretension of that guy. I mean, I was just sitting there the whole time, like, I'm wondering how many people watching this don't get the joke with that guy.
I
You
felt
know?
like called out, to be honest, because it's like, I don't make films, I don't like compose music, but here I
Yeah.
am like constantly like dissecting it, right? And so it's kind
Oh.
of just that funny, like, you know, so much about this stuff, but
Yeah.
you can't actually, all right, make a movie.
Right?
Yeah.
It's like,
Oh, I know. It's
Between-
yeah. It's
Between this and The Northman, what a year for Anya Taylor-Joy.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
God
she's
love her.
she's
Incredible.
been having a good few years. I don't know.
mean,
She's
yeah, Last Night
incredible.
in Soho I loved.
Yeah.
Last
That was
year.
this. Wait, was that? Oh, that was last year.
That was last year.
Yeah, so
I was like, oh my God.
yeah.
But the whole cast, though, like some of my favorite character actors, like I'm a big Janet McTeer fangirl, so I was really excited to see her. I mean, Judith Light, John Leguizamo, Hong Chow is
yeah.
amazing. You know, she's having a good year, I hear. I heard, you know, not to get into the whale discourse, whatever else you think about the whale, I've heard that her performance in it is fantastic. So just a fantastic ensemble cast that I would like to hear more people talk about, just, you know, as a huge fan of a lot of those folks.
And I gotta say, John Leguizamo is having quite a holiday season between the Menu and Violent Night. So yeah, he's great in both of them, and I love his character in the Menu. He's again just
funny,
sort of this. It kind of makes you think of characters in Nope and things like that. You know? So it's terrific. It's really great stuff all around.
Yeah. All right, Mike.
So this is a movie that I am so excited it came out this month, because when I started at Telluride Horror, I'm like, if it comes out this year, it's going to be right near the top of my list. It's a movie written and directed by Andy Mitten called The Harbinger. I have been on board with Mitten since his debut with Yellow Brick Road, and I remember seeing that movie at the New York City Horror Film Fest, walking out going, I don't know what this is, but I want more of it. And I just love everything he has done. It's a COVID movie, and it leans very heavily into it, like masking, social distancing. It is about a woman who leaves her family, her brother and her father. They're like socially distancing. They're isolating themselves. They're doing temperature checks. They're having everything delivered. They're cleaning everything. They're being uber careful. And then she gets a text from her best friend from college saying, I need you to come to me. And she had made a promise that if you ever need me for anything, I will go to you. And she goes to this tiny little apartment in New York, and her friend is experiencing these nightmares that last for days. And she's being hunted by basically the plague demon. I don't get scared at horror movies a lot anymore. I think a lot of us probably don't anymore. I think we get unnerved at things, but this genuinely scared me.
Wow.
It tapped into one of my deepest existential fears, in that if this thing wears you down to the point where it can basically then pull you out of existence, so that not only are you dead and gone, but there is no memory of you. Your family forgets you. Your friends forget you. You're out of every picture. Any work that you have done has been erased from existence. I watched this at Telluride Horror. It was like the midnight screening. After introducing it and doing the Q&A with Andy, went back to my hotel room and put my head down at the pillow at like 1 a.m. At 3:30 in the morning, I woke up from like a horrific nightmare, and I don't genuinely dream anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And I looked at my phone and I'm like, is it too early to call my wife back home in Massachusetts? Like, I was genuinely scared.
Wow.
It's beautifully acted. Says it ends on a moment of hope. I'm not sure. There's a jump scare at the end that really got me, like really fucking got me. It is incredibly well done. It's beautiful. It's one of those things that takes advantage of the small cast and if you can stomach an actual COVID movie, this is the one to watch.
Okay.
We're going to be covering it in a lot more detail on psychoanalysis next month. We're actually doing COVID as our topic. We're going to do that in the host, which is now ironic because as of this evening, I've tested positive for the first time after 2 years and 10 months. And Andy is going to be on our show as well. So we got Comfort Horror of Friday the 13th, Part 2. So you will be hearing more of him very soon. So I love this movie. Seek it out. It's genuinely frightening. And if you disagree with me, if you watch it and hate it, you can punch Brian in the face. I'll make you.
Thanks, Mike.
I've done that at Telluride. I'm like, look, if I'm overselling this movie and you hate it, you can punch Brad, the other host, as hard as you want.
No, I just recently watched this one for the first time. I got a screener for review and loved it. It is absolutely my favorite pandemic film that I've seen because it ties into some really specific fears and realities of COVID, especially like early lockdown procedures when people were still trying to figure out what was going on, like
what was going on,
sanitizing every single thing you bring into the house and things like that. So there's universality in the specificity, which I always appreciate because it taps into that just universal fear of your own mortality and of being forgotten, of the only thing that even proves that you existed is the possessions you leave behind that might end up in a thrift shop, and nobody knows who they belong to. It's that deep existential terror that I haven't been able to stop thinking about it. So I'm with Mike. I'm glad you put this one on the list because it's so good.
We did our second it closed out the festival. We did a repeat screening of it. And like this year, usually Telluride by the last day, people filter out. It's hard to get to Telluride, and there's not a lot of planes that come in and out. Everyone stayed this year. Like every screening was packed right to the end of the festival, and we had like standing room only for it. And during the Q&A, I looked up front, and there was like two persons like visibly sobbing because they had lost people to COVID. Like I had to like stop and just check in on them to make sure like they were okay, because like it's that kind of movie. So if you're not down for that yet, I totally get it. But my God, what a fucking treat for horror fans.
Cool.
I think I haven't seen this yet. I think you mentioned it, right, because we were on, Michelle and I were on to talk about Halloween Kills, like after you got back from Telluride.
Yeah.
And you mentioned this movie as being one that scared you.
Yeah.
And I thought, and that gave you nightmares and all that. And I thought, wow. So it's been on my radar since then. I've been kind of trying to keep an eye out for it. So I'm really looking forward to seeing this one.
Yeah, same. I haven't seen it, but want to.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll move on to number 2 since we're well past the 2-hour mark. We'll keep on trucking. My number 2 film is The Outwaters, which I might be cheating a bit because I think it's going to see wide release in 2023. But I caught it as a festival this year, and it's so good that I just want to put it on people's radars if they haven't had a chance to watch it yet. It is a found footage film, but stay with me, Brian, because I think you'll like it.
Okay. No, I'm open to it.
Yeah, it's such a small cast and crew. Like the writer, director, editor, cinematographer, Robbie Banfitch did almost, well, I won't say almost everything because I don't want to denigrate the rest of his talented cast and crew, but he did so much on this movie. I've seen a lot of people describe it as the closest you can get to literally filming a descent into hell. It's this camera crew goes out into the desert to film a music video, and they find hell on earth, basically. And I don't know how to describe it better than that. It is so unforgettable and so disturbing and so well done. I'm going to be screaming from the rooftops about this one when it goes on wide release because I want everybody to watch it.
Cool.
Yeah, I've never heard of it, so I'm
yes.
looking forward to. I love me some good found footage too. So
it's incredible. Some of the shots are just so gorgeous. Like I would have prints of this movie all over my walls if I could.
Oh man,
Fascinating. Sounds really interesting to me. And not being a huge found footage guy. So
But yes, everybody be on the lookout for it. I will tweet about it and post about it as soon as I find out where it's going to be and when it's going to be. So,
all right.
all right, Rachel, your turn.
So my number 2 is Watcher, from Chloe Okuno. Hopefully I'm saying that right. But yeah, starring Micah Monroe. Speaking of folks who have had an incredible last few years, she's had a few films come out this year, and I loved this. To me, this was a different kind of horror because it was just very, I mean, I'm talking about like Scream or Halloween Ends, that's one type of horror, but this was like very unnerving to me and really just kind of a masterclass in tension. I think this film is beautiful. The way that, this woman moves with her husband to, I can't remember what country, a foreign country for a job. And she starts to think that she's being followed and stalked and that this person across the way is watching her. And like nobody's believing her. And so it just kind of spirals from there. She starts falling apart. And just where it goes, I think, is really interesting. So there's, some gaslighting things going on. Typical. It just harkens back to a different era of filmmaking, I think, and but also makes it feel very modern. And I just was so uncomfortable and tense this whole movie, and it's beautiful, and I just loved it. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think there's like definitely a 70s Euro horror vibe to it, which I really appreciated. But yeah, it's so like it manages to make a large city claustrophobic, which is a really hard feat to pull off. And it, turns that culture shock of not knowing the language in this sense of isolation that follows her. And like you said, Micah Monroe is fantastic. She's so good in this. I'm a really big fan of this one as well, so I'm glad somebody had it on their list. This would definitely be an honorable mention for me.
Yeah.
And it's a slow burn. Like I love a good slow burn, but like a slow burn that is slow for a reason.
Yeah.
Like it actually assists the story. It's not just somebody being pretentious and wanting to have a lot of really pretty shots or whatever. Like it actually, that the pace amplifies what the film is trying to do. It earns that slow pace. And when it finally, I don't know, when it delivers on everything that it's been building, I feel like it really delivers. And yeah, very creepy.
Yeah, I watched this on Shudder. It's definitely an honorable mention just because of Micah Monroe. It is very surprising because it definitely zigs and zags and keeps you on your toes, and it went in directions. I'm like, oh, it's going to do this, and then it didn't, and I'm like, it's going to steer in a completely different direction where you're like, maybe she actually is not experiencing this. Maybe it is all in her head, and then it doesn't do that. But then things look hopeless, and it's got, like we talked earlier about Resurrection, how I wanted it to have like this triumphant ending. This has that. It has like if I remember correctly, an all-time like great line to end on, and you're like, yeah, this marriage is over. Like this is, there's no coming, like no amount of like roses or dinners out or foot rubs is ever going to bring this marriage back together. Like if I was their couples therapist, I would be like, yeah, you need to get a divorce lawyer, honey. Like, he ain't coming back from this.
I haven't seen this one yet, so obviously I need to. So I'll be sure to give it a watch on Shudder. Yeah.
I think if you really liked Red Eye from Wes Craven,
very much
has that kind of like cat and mouse vibe to it.
Nice.
So I think you might really enjoy it.
Okay. Cool.
All right.
Sounds great.
Okay, Brian and Mike, you had the same choice here.
This happened to me 3 times now. Okay.
I know. 3, 2, 1.
Barbarian.
Yeah, came an eyelash from being my number one, but we'll hold off for a minute.
Same with me. Yeah.
All right. Dun, 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 dun. We are at our number one picks now. And I will go with You Won't Be Alone. This is one I caught at Sundance. And this is my favorite movie of the year. It is probably going to be on my top 10 list for the decade. I'm just going to say that right now.
Wow.
It absolutely blew me away. It's a first time feature from writer director Goran Stilevsky, who I got the chance to interview. I got the chance to interview him and his editor Luca Capelli, who does amazing work on this film too. And they were both so, warm and nice and had amazing things to say about the film. But it's about a girl in Macedonia who she is placed in isolation by her mother to avoid a witch's curse. But the witch finds her.
Cool.
Yeah. But the witch finds her. Yes. Oh. And she kind of shapeshifts. She becomes different people. And it's about learning what it's like to be human, because she was, removed from humanity for the first 16 years of her life. She doesn't know what it means to be a person. So she starts shapeshifting into these different people and living these different lives. And she learns what humanity is all about, what it means to be a person, what it means to be a man, what it means to be a woman, what it means to be a child, what it means to be a mother. And it is just, I'm getting overcome right now just talking about it. It is so gorgeous. And the dialogue is so poetic. Like, she doesn't grow up conversing with people, so she doesn't have she's not fluent in language, but the way that she talks, like, she says, whisper mama and witch mama. Like, whisper mama is her biological mother who would only speak to her in whispers because she didn't want to alert the witch to her whereabouts. And witch mama is the witch who takes her from her mother and raises her in the witchy ways. The script is poetry. The editing is poetry. The movie is poetry. It's one of the most gorgeous films I've seen. And yeah, like, I'm very confident in saying it's going to be on my top 10 list for the decade. It is phenomenal.
Wow.
We should probably
Very
see
cool.
it then.
Yes.
Yep. We should all watch this.
Yes.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Sounds so cool.
Oh, it's so good.
Well, I mean, this is a little bit different. But my number one pick was Barbarian. Surprise! Yay, we can talk about it now. Wow. I don't know how this film managed to keep its secrets held so close.
No.
And it's like, it's so funny. It's like, I'd seen the trailer. I don't know what movie it played before, Scream maybe. And then I just went and saw the movie because I had heard people talking about it. And I was like, I gotta go see it before it gets spoiled. And I'm sitting there and it's like going along and I was like, oh shit, it's that movie with Skarsgård. Like, I completely forgot about the trailer. I completely forgot. I don't know. I didn't know what I was going in for. So that was like, the first like, holy shit moment. And then it just kept delivering them. They just kept coming. This movie was so fun. And I just love a good, fun movie that is so clever and ridiculous. And I'm just so impressed that they kept Justin Long a secret, because as soon as that happened, I was like, wait, what's going on?
I almost shot straight up out of my seat in the theater. But I felt like an electric shot, like The Tingler, like a William Castle movie. I just jumped up, like, what is happening?
Talk about pulling the rug out from under you. Because it's just like, what's happening now? Did they like? I mean, they don't. They like flip the reel in there wrong or something. It was just. It was shocking. And then I have never seen a funnier scene that involved measuring in my life.
Oh my god!
I mean, that's one of the
so funny,
most hilarious things, and I feel like half of the movies I've picked here have been horror comedies. I just keep saying, this movie's so funny. This movie's so funny. This movie's so funny. I mean, and it's so genuinely frightening. I knew nothing about this going in at all. It just was like, I think I might have seen a tweet from Mike or someone that said, "Don't watch a trailer, just go see Barbarian.
Mm-hmm.
You'll like it." And it's like, okay, and so that's what I did, and
you did.
I'm glad that I did, because for a long time, until just the very last minute here, it was my favorite of the year by far. And so,
Same.
yeah, there was just no question about it. But yeah, it's terrific, unexpected, and it's a Disney movie.
Yeah.
Once again, which is just bizarre to say that, like, what, three of these, Barbarian, Prey,
Yeah.
Hellraiser,
Right.
are
I want to
Disney
We're
see
living
like
in weird times.
I want to see like the creature from Barbarian like take on like Enchanted next. Like it
Yeah.
just shows up and starts ripping Amy Adams'
Oh,
arms
man.
off.
And the mother, what a just sort of inspired thing that is. And I'm not going to say anything more about that, but
Yeah.
yeah.
It's rare that horror movies surprise us, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we usually can see where a movie is going to go. And there's like so many moments during this where I had genuinely no idea. And I found myself just laughing in the theater so hard. I took my daughter to like the Thursday night preview the day before it opened. Like, let's just go. It's the first week of school. We don't have a lot going on yet. And it was such a good choice. I just laughed so hard. I probably annoyed people around me, but that moment at the end when you get like the Superman dive, I don't.
Yeah.
I think that is probably the funniest moment
pretty
since the end of
brilliant.
Saint Maud to me, in terms of just hilarious. I love how it plays against type. Like it basically gives you Skarsgård and Justin Long and says like you know what to expect from these characters just based on like the casting, and then it like pulls the rug out from under you.
Mm-hmm.
There may not be a better transition from the end of the first act basement scene to Justin Long drive, which is like dank and dark and pitch black, to like you're on, and it's so claustrophobic, to you're on like the West Coast with Justin Long like singing along to Ricky Tacky Ticky by
Right.
Donovan. Like when I watched this with my wife, she turned to me and was like, does this have anything to do with what we just watched? And I'm like, just watch the movie. Just, let it wash over you. The measuring scene is great. His first instinct when he like sees, when Justin Long's character see, and it plays into like, it's very smart because it plays into the fears that men and women have, like how women experience fear differently.
Mm-hmm.
So you have our lead with Georgina Campbell's character like stumbles upon this room that is like a mattress, a camera, and a shit bucket, and there is
Right.
blood on the wall. She's like, we got to get out of here. And Skarsgård sees it and is like, oh, I wonder what other treasures this home holds.
Wondrous delights are in store.
Right? And like
Oh, man.
Justin Long's character is like, can I use this to like add square footage to the
Right.
real estate? So it really taps into like, and like we used to, with my old site, we used to be the East Coast premiere of the Etheria Film Festival, which are movies that are all like written and directed by women or women identifying persons. And what was fascinating to me is like how you saw these films that were genuinely scary, but they're things that I don't have to really think about in day-to-day life, and it just gives you a different perspective. And it does it here in a way that's not cloying or hitting you over the head with a message. It's genuinely funny.
Yeah.
And I thought, like, are they going to redeem Justin Long? And then he like hangs up on his mother and drops an F, an F slur.
Man.
And you're like, nope, this guy can go. What a,
It just
God,
keeps
love this movie.
keeps
Just
jerking you around with him
Yeah.
so much. I love that. So he's been kind of the
It's like, you can't escape, but I can. Oh, just everything
man.
about it is so perfect. It's just so good.
It's great.
Yep.
All right, Brian.
Okay, so this is the one that I just saw last weekend, and I'd been putting it off and putting it off and putting it off. I was like, do I really feel like seeing this movie? Uh, well, apparently I did. I saw. So it's Luca. I don't know how to say his last name.
Guadagnino?
Guadagnino, Guadagnino, something like that.
Sure.
Guadagnino. Sure. Bones and all. I was so surprised by this movie. I did not expect this to be something I would be particularly interested in. Um, Timothy Chalamet's charms have heretofore been lost on me, but I thought he was terrific in this. As Lee, I thought Mark Rylance was bizarre and frightening, and but above all, Taylor Russell as Marin is. I mean, as she had before this been in the escape room movies, and here,
I thought she was, I love that
yeah,
character. I have
yeah,
thought about her for years. I'm always
yeah,
like, these
yeah,
movies don't get enough credit because of
yeah.
her.
I
And I'm
know.
thrilled to see her in something on this big of a scale because
Mhm.
I think I have always been like, this girl is amazing.
She is. She truly is. And to see her, I mean, and one of one of my things with not just horror movies but with movies in general, it seems over the past few years, is they feel so confined. It feels like so often they're just in a couple of rooms, or they're in, you know, even something like Glass Onion is really a one location movie. I mean,
Yeah.
and I love that movie, um but this is a sprawling movie. It takes place outdoors. It's like, Terrence Malick's Badlands. It felt a lot like that. You had
Yeah.
these two people traveling across the country,
Hmm.
um, running into people and eating them. That's not a spoiler, because it's given away right at the beginning that she she's been sort of sheltered her whole life, never allowed to go out. And she sneaks out to go to the sleepover, and she's talking with a friend and who shows her nail polish, and she literally bites her finger off. And she doesn't know why. She's just completely compelled to do this. And I mean, this could be, uh, I mean, the cannibalism element. It could mean so many things. It can be um, read in so many different ways, and I
Hmm.
love that about this. I mean, I was thinking about, this is sort of horror not based so much on trauma like we've seen a lot of trauma horror. This is more back. I'm thinking of movies like Cat People or even Frankenstein. It's the horror of the outcast, the horror of the outsider, and um and these two sort of lost souls that find each other. And it's just kind of this. I mean, I think the only thing that makes it a horror movie is the fact that they eat people. But but it's so much of it is just this deeply felt love story, and I just was completely taken by it, so moved by it. Um, Another great monologue is Timothy Chalamet, talking about what really happened with his father, and it's just like it's gut wrenching, and it
Hmm.
is it's just a terrific movie that really caught me by surprise,
I
because it,
haven't
it
seen it
did
yet. I
not
want to see
Yeah.
it so
I'm
oh
actually
bad.
watching
no
it after this recording, so I'm really excited to
okay
check it out.
Yeah.
okay
I agree with everything you said, Brian, especially like this is Guadagnino doing Badlands, just doing Malik.
yeah
And I love the scale and scope of this movie and the expansiveness of this movie. It's just beautiful to look at.
yes
It's very much like you said, like barely a horror movie.
yeah
It's more of a romance. It's more of a coming of age story. I really enjoyed. I took my daughter to see it a couple weeks ago at the theater right around the street from us. I think my favorite thing about the experience, we were the only people in the theater until about 5 minutes in. These like three girls who go to the high school walked in expecting a much different movie,
oh okay
and pieced out in the most loud possible way.
Oh,
20 minutes in,
oh
we're
no.
like shocked. That
Yeah.
just tickled me so much.
Though, though, I mean, yeah, I can see that for sure. Well, it's like, okay, my experience, I got to throw this in. My experience with seeing Smile, as I didn't really care for the movie, but I got to say, speaking of laughing in movies, and it was a full theater, and there were people there who were not getting what they were expecting. But
Yeah.
the part where the kid pulls the dead cat out of the box,
Ah,
I started laughing
yep.
so loud that people must have thought I was a psycho. But anyway, real quick on this one as well. I think there's some genuinely scary things concerning Mark Rylance's character. It's concerning. I mean, he's so disturbing, and he's just so damn good in everything. And there's also a scene that really got me, is a scene where she visits her mother, and I'm not going to say more than that,
Oh, yeah.
but it was just like it was just devastating, that whole sequence, and it there's an element of it that genuinely frightened me, but it was yeah. So I think I was really when I went and saw the Fablemans, and I went and saw Pinocchio, and I was like, please, just something emotionally gut me. And those movies
Yeah.
didn't, and I was really disappointed by that. This movie emotionally gutted me, and it was like
Yeah.
gave me that. And yeah, maybe it's barely a horror movie, but I think it counts. Because there is the fantasy and the element of this and
This,
the element of the cannibalism, which is not really cannibalism, it's something
yeah.
different. It's interesting. So it's
This is
fascinating.
another movie, probably about a half dozen of our movies on this list at least, explore toxic masculinity
Yeah.
in some really
Oh yeah.
interesting ways. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And also explores um, the antithesis of that with a positive masculinity as well, I think. And so there's a few characters
Yeah.
that fall into that category. I mean, listening to the tapes of her father, the way this movie's paced, it's long, but it's paced. It just, I never felt bored or like it was lagging at all throughout the whole runtime. So I was quite surprised by it. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that.
All right, Mike, you got the last one.
All right. I think a couple of us had this. I think Rachel, you had this on your list as well. And Jessica, you have it on your list as well. So I'll kind of chat here. I'll
Well, with me
be
then.
brief because the NyQuil is kicking in a little bit, and I may just collapse onto my desk. My last pick is Ty West X. And I think I knew when I saw this movie, it was going to be like right at the top of my list. I love this movie. And the accurate but reductive take is to say this is like Boogie Nights meets Texas Chainsaw Massacre. Because in a lot of ways, it is that. And like, look, if you're going to like smush two amazing movies together, you can do much worse than that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love, like, I think horror movies, I think movies in general, like when you look at the Marvel movies, there is not even a whiff of sexuality in those movies.
Mm-hmm.
Like, everybody might as well be eunuchs in that movie. Like, there is just nothing going on in those. And I think movies in general, there's just not a lot of fucking anymore in movies. And I think, like, as a society, we've agreed that like sex is just something we're gonna say, yeah, we do it, but we're gonna like never talk about it. We don't do that around company. It's not polite. And this movie is not afraid to get hot and sweaty and feral at times, but it's not gratuitous. Like, the sex has a point. And I think, like, for the two villains of this movie, they're not punishing the teens or they're not punishing this troop because they're having sex, and that needs to be punished.
Right.
They are lashing out at this troop because they're no longer young. They're no longer able to express themselves physically like they want to, and there's a jealousy that goes along with that. Um, but the kind of like love scene that like, and I did not know this was Mia Goth in makeup until the credits. Like when she is Pearl in her old age in this movie, and her and Howard have that lovemaking scene, like there's something kind of beautiful about that, because it's like this older couple that still loves one another very, and he's like, oh, my heart, and she's like, we'll be okay, like we'll be gentle, and that's actually really warm.
Mm-hmm.
And
you don't see that very often.
No.
I mean,
No,
like,
you
older
really don't.
people like showing
No.
affection and getting down, like you don't
Right.
see that.
Yeah. And if
I
you do,
hope
it's
that's
played for
me.
laughs, but it's not here.
Right.
Mhm.
No,
Right.
I hope that's me, as I get older. And I think like it's a very sex positive movie. It's not
Mhm.
titillating. It has like a lot of great things to say about like sex work and the nature of that business. But it never forgets to be a horror movie.
Right.
Mhm.
There are some like genuinely disturbing deaths. The acting is out of this world. It again has a moment that's like a really, just like in House of the Devil, there's a really shocking death in this movie, and it plays out in here in perfect fashion. The movie looks like $1,000,000. Like it looks gorgeous. I think Ty West is one of the best. Just sets up amazing shots. He's obviously uh, paying like a loving tribute to Toby Hooper with a lot of what goes on in this movie. And a lot of movies aspire to be Texas Chainsaw Massacre. This comes the closest, and I really love it. I think I might actually go rewatch it again after we hang up.
Yeah. I revisited this one a few days ago, and I loved it in the theater, and I think I loved it even more this time around. In the X versus Pearl conversation, I definitely come down as preferring X.
Same.
I think I think it's a little richer, and I really connected with this idea that, I'm with you completely, Mike, that it's not punishing these people for having sex. This is a movie about the danger of suppressing your own desire. If you ignore your desire, pretend it's not there, ignore your own wants and needs, that is where the danger comes from. It's this puritanical streak in American culture that is rotting our brains, that is, destroying us. If we acknowledge and respect desires that a lot of people have and treat them in a healthy way, so much violence could be avoided, so many societal ills, quote unquote, could be avoided. I'm really fascinated with that idea, the preacher coming in. It's so brilliant. The ending, praise the fucking Lord. I'm just obsessed with it. But yeah, this idea of repressed desire being the real villain, that's something that kind of hits close to home, and something that I really like seeing explored in horror.
I think the only thing I have to add, because I agree with everything you guys are saying, something that I like more about this than Pearl is just the ensemble cast that we get with this. A lot of really strong characters. Pearl, it's like, that's Mia Goth's movie. Like the characters, the other characters are good. They're great. The other characters here, the rest of the cast is incredible. I loved it. So this has a really strong ensemble cast and some like iconic performances from some of these actors. So yeah, I loved it.
Yeah, I did too. And it was just kind of amazing seeing this on a massive screen with very uncomfortable teenagers sitting a couple of seats in front of me during that sex scene. I was just like I'm a bit sadistic when it comes to that. But it was really really something. I was not really sure what I was expecting, just kind of heard, the Boogie Nights meets Texas Chainsaw kind of idea. And yeah, that's not inaccurate. And it's a terrific movie. And crocodiles freak me out. So, hey, yeah, I mean, this is definitely the more horror film of the two.
Mhm.
This is the one that's, got the slasher thing going on, and it's got, but like you said, it's got a lot. It's got a lot of brains in its head too, and so there's a lot of great stuff going on in this movie. I own it, happy to own it, and I'm excited to watch it again. I haven't watched it since I saw it in the theater, and as soon as I finished watching Pearl, I was like, I want to watch X again.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just kind of how I think these just compel you to want to watch the other one in a way too. I think that's one of the things that's cool about them. And I'm kind of new to Ty West. I've seen X and Pearl and The Sacrament, but that's it. I haven't seen The Innkeepers or House of the Devil even. So yeah, I got some catching up to do.
Yep.
That was sort of released in those.
Watch Orphan first.
Yes.
Watch Orphan
Yes.
first. Okay. Yes, I will. Okay. So.
All right. That does it. Almost
We did
3
it.
hours later, we have done it.
Mike, you hung in there. You did
Yeah,
it.
way to go.
Oh, Jessica, thank you for stepping into the big chair today.
Oh, it was my pleasure. I hope I didn't scare everybody off, but... All right. So we had 4 top 10 lists, 29 total movies between the 4 of us, not including our honorable mentions. And I'm just going to wrap it up because we've been here a while. The listeners have been here a while. I am Jessica Scott. You can find me on Twitter at WeWhoWalkHere and at WeWhoWalkHere.com. I collect all my writing and podcast appearances and everything. Come say hi to me on Twitter at WeWhoWalkHere. Rachel, where can folks find you?
Yeah, I'm on Twitter at Vinyl Girl, GRRRL, or Instagram at The Vinyl Girl. Yeah, come say hi, hang out.
Brian, how about you?
You can find me at BrianWaves42 on Twitter, Instagram, and Letterboxd.
Excellent.
And you can say hi there too.
Yeah.
And I will.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, what about you?
You can find me at Mike Chump Change on Letterboxd and Hive if that ever comes back. You can find me at Mike_Snootian on Twitter, although I probably will be leaving there soon. And also the same on Instagram.
And you can find the Pod and the Pendulum on Twitter at Pod and Pendulum, though if Mike leaves Twitter, Pod and Pendulum might do the same.
We'll probably just promote the show there.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, for listening. And Brian, go watch Orphan.
Yes.
Go watch Orphan, Brian.
Yes, everybody. I promise.
It'll be on your 2023
best of list. Yeah, my discoveries of the
years
year
late.
list. Yeah.
Thank you, listeners. We really appreciate it. Jessica, thank you so much for hosting tonight. You did a fantastic job.
Thank you so much.
Go to bed, Mike. Go to bed.
Oh,